صفات Good evening, everybody. Just a few announcements. Fire evacuation procedures for the meeting. There are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening. Therefore, if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exit is located to the rear of the room. Go down the stairs and meet in the War Memorial Park. This meeting is being webcast and it is being live on the internet. Can I remind you to switch off your mobile phones or turn them to silent? And can I ask members to check that they've logged in with their cards? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Firstly, please may I ask you to remain standing whilst I invite my chaplain, Reverend Canon Linda Scard, to come forward to say a few words. And can I invite those who wish to withdraw from the auditorium, or the chamber even, during prayers to do so now. In view of everything that is going on in Ukraine, Reverend Canon Linda will lead with prayers for the people of Ukraine.
To show solidarity with the people of Ukraine, all over the world yesterday, organists started acts of worship in cathedrals and churches by playing Great Gate of Kiev by the composer Mussorgsky, and at the end of the service, the Ukrainian national anthem. We will all choose to show our solidarity in different ways, but for this evening, let's begin with a prayer from our Archbishops Justin Welby and Stephen Cottrell. So as we stand, let us pray. God of peace and justice, we pray for the people of Ukraine today. We pray for peace and the laying down of weapons. We pray for all those who fear for tomorrow, that your spirit of comfort would draw near to them. We pray for those with power over war or peace, for wisdom, discernment, and compassion to guide their decisions. Above all, we pray for your precious children at risk and in fear, that you would hold and protect them. We pray in the name of Jesus, the Prince of Peace. Amen. Heavenly Father, since the days of Abraham and the days when your Son walked this earth, humankind has displayed greed, brutality, and a craving for power and control. So many of us hang our heads in despair as we witness yet another demonstration of state-sponsored military activity in Eastern Europe. Our prayers go out to the people of Ukraine, and we pray too for the people of Russia, all but a few of whom are unaware of the true motives and facts that are causing loss of life and home amongst innocent civilians. In the name of the Prince of Peace we pray. Amen. God of healing, we give thanks for all those who have worked to protect and help us through the coronavirus epidemic over the past 2 years. You gave us all talents, and we are grateful for those who have used their gifts for the good of others in so many and different ways during this time. We pray that our Queen recovers well from COVID, as she slows with age and sees her role more and more shared with others. We pray that this year of Jubilee and celebration may be a joyous occasion, focusing on all that is good in community and society. And finally, Heavenly Father, we pray for ourselves. In the midst of the current devastating situation in Europe, the work we have committed to do in this council must carry on. In all that will be discussed at the meeting this evening, give us the will to reach agreement on what will best serve the people of this borough. These prayers we bring together in the words our Saviour himself taught us to say. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, Reverend Canon Linda, for your wonderful and wise words of prayer.
Sorry. This evening we stand with President Zelensky and all of the Ukraine's people as they bravely fight for their freedom, their future, and their sovereignty. Please be seated. Thank you. Right, waiting for you all to be seated. Thank you. All right. I am Councillor Onley Cubitt, and as Mayor of Basingstoke and Dean for this year, I will be chairing this meeting. May I welcome back to the council chambers all councillors, participants and viewers to this council meeting, which will be held in accordance with the Constitution. This meeting is being live streamed on YouTube and will be available to view after the meeting has finished. The points of procedure for tonight are as follows. Councillors who wish to speak should raise a hand, and I will invite you to stand. Once you have finished speaking, please sit down. If an issue seems to be broadly supported, then I may call for hands to be raised if there is dissent on a subject. If hands are raised, then we will count the dissent, and if no hands are raised, then I will take it that we are agreed. If there is dissent and we need to go to a vote, then the vote will be taken electronically. Can councillors please make sure that their mobiles are switched to silent, along with any other devices that could interfere with this meeting? And in the event this meeting becomes lengthy, I shall call for standing orders to be suspended at 9:30 p.m. We shall decide to proceed from there. So we will now proceed with the agenda. So the first item on the agenda is the apologies for absence. I currently have Councillor Court. Councillor Bound, do you have any other additional councillors who are not here?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors Eaches and Councillor Poland for lateness.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harvey? No. Councillor McCormack?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Stephanie Grant, who is shielding.
Thank you very much. And Councillor James?
I have nothing to apologise for, Madam Mayor, as always.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, moving on to agenda item number 2. We have declarations of interest. Are there any interests regarding any items on the agenda that members wish to declare? None? Okay, perfect. Third item on the agenda is the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of January 2022. Members, these minutes are on pages 9 to 18. If everyone is happy, I will move that they are correct. They are a correct record and sign them. Is everyone agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Moving on to the announcements. Firstly, it's great to be back in the chamber. We're indebted to Matthew Cleaver and the Anvil for enabling us to conduct our business during the pandemic at the Haymarket, so a big thank you to them. Secondly, we were all very sad to hear that the former mayor, Jerry Traynor, died. I went in my capacity as mayor to his funeral at St Joseph's, and it was very well attended and was a lovely service. He was a great man with a kind heart and a formidable sense of humour, and we extend our sincerest condolences to his family at this time. This is probably going to be a long meeting, so I shall be brief. I finally got access to the Mayor's Parlour for the first time during my mayoralty a couple of weeks ago. I do consider that the parlour is an essential space for the Mayor to conduct their business effectively, and I was blessed to have a remarkable, plucky lady called Eileen Foote who came to christen the reopening of the parlour. She last visited it in the 1970s, and it was her 94th birthday last week, so happy birthday to Eileen. I've since hosted a number of teas for special residents in our borough, including representatives from the Nepalese community, which was arranged by Councillor Paul Harvey. Paul Anderson, who has recently graduated from Read Easy, a wonderful local charity which focuses on adult literacy and which is so important. And then Ivy Miller, who is an incredible 9-year-old from Basingstoke, who has become a 3 times national weightlifting champion. We have so much talent here in this borough to celebrate. On Saturday, I attended a BAME community event arranged by the Right Honourable MP Maria Miller. There was an important panel there of senior representatives from the community, from the NHS, from Hampshire County Council, the police and the local education authority and the BAME community. The debate was important. Dialogue is essential, and as I said at the event, the calibre of our councillors has been raised significantly by the addition of more councillors from the BAME community here in Basingstoke and Deane. Harnessing the best talent in our borough has to be the most important aspiration for us all. We attended the Basingstoke Symphony Orchestra spring concert last night, and wow, it was a magical evening. I can't recommend these events more highly. The incredible conductor, Stephen Scotchmer, and his orchestra are outstanding. They are supremely talented volunteers. Our former mayor, Chris Evans, retired as president after 30 years last night, and I thanked him for his unending public service and the contribution that both he and Sheila have made to the orchestra's history. Finally, a plug for as many of you as possible to come and join me at the Anvil this Saturday. BAOS is celebrating their centenary this year, and I am honoured to host their semi-stage production of Gilbert and Sullivan's The Pirates of Penzance this Saturday at the Anvil at 7:30. Hugo and I went to a dress rehearsal last week, and it is a brilliant show. So, and it's not completely sold out. So please tell all your friends and family about it. Please come and support not only our talented performers and musicians, but also my 2 charities. And tickets range from £20 to £13. As I have always said, we are nothing without our arts. I understand from the Chief Executive there are no announcements from him. So we move on to the next item, which is questions from the members of public, and there are none. We move to number 6, which is the petition, and we have one petition to receive this evening. Mr. Alex Lee wishes to submit a petition entitled "Stop the Manydown Development Site Entrance Impacting on Residents of Winklebury and Manydown." Welcome, Mr. Lee. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Manydown development has been the source of frustration to many residents of Winklebury and Manydown for a long time. From the scale of the development on their doorsteps to the loss of open space and the effect it has on the wildlife in the area. These, combined with multiple developments commencing in short order and the closure of Fort Hill School, have added worry to families across the ward. Over a significant period, the outline plans for the development were put together by a variety of people. These plans were adapted based on the feedback and input of those it would affect the most, and, as one resident said recently, while she wasn't happy in general with the loss of the land, the fact that residents were being listened to and a number of measures were being taken to limit the impact on local people made her slightly happier. Unfortunately, this lady, who has lived in Winklebury for over 30 years, and others, no longer feel happy after finding out the reality of what is being proposed. That site traffic, including many HGVs, will rumble along Roman Road for a significant period, causing delays and adding a risk to their safety for years to come. Madam Mayor, councillors, I won't stop informing those who have the ability to do something about this issue. I'm sure those of you on the Manydown Overview Committee are tired of hearing me talk about this, but it's an important issue as shown by those who have signed this petition. Around 1,400 residents are directly affected by this due to the fact that their roads are connected to Roman Road, with no other means of getting in and out of the area. Many more will be affected by people rat running through other roads in the area to avoid queues as the new junctions and entrances are formed along Roman Road. The fact that site traffic and any rise in residential traffic is expected to use Roman Road is counter to what it says on those plans that made residents feel slightly happier, considering that most opposed it. The outline construction environmental management plan states the following: there are 4 assumed strategic construction access routes for all phases of the development, and 1 access route that would only be used until an on-site construction haul road is completed. It's envisaged that the haul road would link a junction on the B3400 Worthing Road to a junction at the northern end Roman Road. Of all those stated, it says that traffic would go in via A339 Kingsclear Road and a northern entrance. The 5th, and only until the haul road was completed, is on the B3400. But this is not what master developers Urban and Civic have proposed. At the Manydown Overview Committee meeting, they presented that the junction of the Winklebury Way and Roman Road would be opened up initially, along with 2 other site entrances on Roman Road, one of which is on a bend in the road where only recently we had a tragic and fatal crash. As one resident said at our community meeting, it's unconscionable, no, irresponsible for traffic to be routed down Roman Road. When questioned about why they wouldn't be building the northern junction first, health and safety was quoted. Madam Mayor, does the health and safety of the existing residents not matter to those conducting this development? It's already acknowledged that the top of Roman Road and the Wellington Terrace turning are dangerous as it is being closed off. Why then does nobody see the risk in allowing heavy lorries to come off the ring road so close to that junction for such a long period of time? The health and safety risk is not going to disappear. It will only get worse when the growth of residents in the area are all trying to get out of their homes through the one route. Madam Mayor, councillors, residents across Basingstoke are fed up with developers being able to control the narrative of how houses are built. Winklebury residents feel that the developers have more of a say than them, that their voices aren't being heard by a council that should be representing them over the interests of a developer. What justification is there for changing the entrance points for this development, and where is the evidence to back it up? If, in fact, it is due to cost, which is what residents believe is the issue, then why can't the developer use the £25 million loan that's being voted on tonight?
Mr. Lee, you have 1 more minute
Thank
left.
you. Plus the equal sum that Hampshire County Council will match to do the right thing. We are fortunate to live in a democracy in the UK, and it is important the voices of those that have signed this petition and the many others who couldn't visit in time before today are heard. As Councillor Bound recently said, it's time to listen to our residents and renew our efforts in delivering what they want. Well, Winklebury residents urge you to do what was originally said will be done. Listen to their calls and give consideration to the impact of this development on them due to increasing site traffic on Roman Road. They ask that you reject or refuse any future plan that sees the Manydown site being opened up along Roman Road, and they implore you to give preference to building the junction to the north of the site and the creation of the internal Hall Road. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you for those words. Your petition will now go to the Planning Department as it is a petition relating to a planning application. Thank you for coming and thank you for engaging in democracy. Right, we move on to agenda item number 7, and as members you all know, on the 3rd of February, Councillor Rattigan resigned as leader of the council with immediate effect, citing personal reasons. We thank him for his tenure. In accordance with the Constitution, Councillor Bound, as deputy leader, has been acting leader since that time. The Conservative group has now elected Councillor Bound as their new leader, and tonight the council will formally vote on the new leader of the council. I have a proposer and a seconder for Councillor Bound, but I was wondering, are there any other nominations being made? Nope. Okay. Councillor Rafal, I understand you are going to propose, please.
Madam Mayor, may I formally propose Councillor Simon Bound as leader of the council.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
May I ask, we are amending the Constitution, item 13. Why are we having this vote now and then amending the Constitution afterwards?
So, well, I'll let them. I know the answer, but it's not my job.
The Head of Law and Governance has exercised her delegated power to amend the Constitution. You're just being asked to ratify it after the event.
Right, so Councillor J. Ganesh, I believe you wish to second the nomination.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second Councillor Bound to be the leader formally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, now can everybody please vote on the new leader? Show of hands for dissent? For dissent? Okay, show of hands for 4. Okay. So I can confirm 29, so the leader is confirmed, and it is Councillor Simon Bound. So if I could ask you as new leader, if you'd like to stand up, make a speech, and then advise us of your new appointments, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'll keep this brief. Thank you to my colleagues for my nominations as council leader. There has never been a more important time for this council to do the right thing by the people of our borough. I know our focus as a council is on providing the economic and human support required for us all after the horrid time we have had during the pandemic. As a borough, we are fortunate that we are well placed to do this. We have a climate and biological emergency declared, and the key challenges inherent in formulating a local plan. We have set ourselves these steep challenges, and we must work together to ensure success. I pledge my commitment to supporting our residents, protecting what our residents value, and protecting the environment and landscapes that we all enjoy. To help me do that, I will be appointing John Isett as my Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Finance and Property, Hayley Eachis as Cabinet Member for Recycling, Waste and Regulatory Services, Becky Bean as Cabinet Member for Health, Wellbeing and Leisure, Tristan Robinson as Cabinet Member for Homes and Economy, Mark Raffel as Cabinet Member for the Natural Environment and Climate Improvement. We will also be joined by Jenny Vox as Cabinet Member for Community Development and Jay Ganesh as Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure. With these current and future challenges facing us as a local authority, I am pleased to welcome Cabinet members who have real experiences of the needs of new and existing communities, dealing with the reality of the promises by developers and the challenges that their promises, when broken, present to our residents. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I seem to have forgotten how to work the systems. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, new leader. Right, in view of these announcements, moving to 2 of 7, and in view of the elevation, for example, of Councillor Vokes to the Cabinet, we now have a knock-on effect on the committees. So, members, are there any resignations from any committees, or do you need to make any new appointments as a result of the changes you've announced? Councillor Band.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you quite rightly point out, that does cause some considerable changes. So if I may go committee by committee. For Community, Environment and Partnerships Committee, I would like to put forward Councillor Hannah Golding as the chair and replace Councillor Ganesh by Councillor Jeans and replace Councillor Jeans as a reserve by Councillor Rattigan, if I may.
Thank you.
Do you want me to do the other committees as well while we're here?
I think we should go through, all of it.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So EPH, replacing Councillor Vox by Hannah Golding and replacing Councillor Ganesh as a reserve by Councillor Rattigan. Replacing Councillor Ganesh on Manydown Overview Committee by Councillor Rattigan. On the Scrutiny Committee, replacing Jenny Vox as a reserve by Hannah Golding. On the Development Control Committee, replacing Jay Ganesh by Councillor Faulkner and replacing Councillor Faulkner as a reserve by Councillor Rattigan. And on the Human Resources Committee, replacing Councillor Rattigan with myself and myself as a reserve by Councillor Rattigan. And then on the IDC, replacing myself with Councillor Ganesh. And then last, but by no means least, Standards Committee, replacing Councillor Vox with Councillor Rattigan.
Brilliant, Leader. Thank you very much. Any other announcements? No from it. No. Okay, so then moving on to the outside bodies, I have been advised that Councillor Carr has resigned from Testbourne Community Centre. And we still have outstanding on page 19. Yes, sorry, Councillor Phillimore.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Could you inform me and my fellow Whitchurch, Eltham and Laverstoke councillors why there's no re-appointment required to replace Councillor Carr on the Testbourne Community Centre Management Committee?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, so there are still... Oh, no, I've been told that it has been disbanded. I thought that's what you were saying to me. Okay. No, well... Yeah. Technically, you're correct. Well, point well made, Councillor Phillimore. Right. Okay, number 19. We still have some vacancies. Is anybody... Yes, please.
Just a remark, Madam Mayor. When Anne Graves is speaking, it's being recorded as Fiona Thompson.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Putty saying that when Anne's speaking, it's currently recording it as Fiona talking. Is there any chance that can be amended? No? Okay. Unfortunately, we're going to have to live with that. We can just tell whoever's watching, if anybody's watching, that when it says Fiona, it actually means Anne. Thank you. Right. Okay. So nobody interested in the remaining outstanding vacancies on page 19? Nope. Okay, cool. Right, so we move to number 8. The medium-term financial strategy and budget update report, 2022-2025. Members, this agenda item is on pages 21 to 156. The way this is going to proceed is that the leader will speak to this agenda, followed by each of the leaders in the following order. After the leader, it will be Councillor Andy McCormick, followed by Councillor Paul Harvey, and followed by Councillor Gavin James. So if the leader would like to take to the floor now, that'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think it's only right not to underestimate the importance of this budget this evening, with the growing pressures on the cost of living and the potential conflict that creates with the need to invest in protecting our environment and our great borough. This budget has a key focus on financial stability and allowing us to plan for the future, setting out our financial stall for the next 2 years. This financial plan has many things in it that need support. We have our local plan update that will start later this year when the local plan draft is released for consultation. This budget ensures that we have a fully resourced team to follow the unanimous wishes of this council, working on preparing a case for a number of homes which recognises our local constraints and the previously high delivery rate of homes that we have delivered. Making a case to change the 5-year land supply test. It is frankly ridiculous that the 5-year land supply test currently ignores our high past delivery rates and the eye-watering number of planning permissions that we have already given. This is simply wrong. Updating our policies to deliver on our collective determination around climate and biodiversity gains, all policies that mean we are doing our best to protect our borough. I agree with our residents when they say we've had enough of this high-octane build mentality. Those who ignore our residents' loud voices do so at their peril. It is now time to be more considered around what gets built and where and why. This isn't about standing still. No, this is about careful planning for the future. One of the many challenges is dealing with the climate emergency. This budget commits to £2 million of funding climate change initiatives, but we recognise further funding will be required in the future. We are supporting our residents to make changes that will both reduce their bills and their carbon impact. This has never been more important to us all. We are increasing the availability of digital services for those residents who would rather contact us in this way, reducing our reliance on paper and postal services. This budget also sets out how we will support our new climate change and air quality strategy, leading by example where we can, whilst inspiring and enabling others to do their bit. If homes are to be built, as many of them as possible must be carbon neutral. Developers must rise to this challenge. We must also explore difficult questions that might make a huge difference to tens of thousands of people. Questions like, if the M3 had a 50 miles per hour speed limit, it would slash air and noise pollution. We need to ask ourselves and our partners those difficult questions. We need also to step up to our recently declared biodiversity emergency. This new cabinet will plan for at least one biodiversity improvement zone in every ward of our borough. We will prioritise making Saundersfield a biodiversity improvement zone as soon as possible and remove it from any future plans for the leisure park. This budget will also allow us to plan to plant trees for new woodland as part of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. We don't need an excuse to plant trees, but we have a great reason this year. We are also planning to offer more support to those amazing green volunteers who do so much in our downland, our ditches, our scrubland and our ponds. I applaud those people who are working hard for our environment and to protect amazing open spaces like Old Down. This plan also allows us to prepare for future changes in waste and recycling, increasing the types of items that can be recycled and setting ambitious targets to increase recycling, something I hope we can all support. Investing in a waste service that has seen a significant impact from the pandemic and the increase in what needs to be collected by our crews. We are investing to support that increase in demand. Supporting our local economic and human recovery from the pandemic is also a key priority. Investing over £1 million in support for economic recovery. Show me another district council that is doing that. Investing in our town centre events and activities programme for all. Supporting the voluntary sector to do what they do best to the tune of nearly £1.5 million. In addition to the millions of pounds we have already given in grants over so many years, to provide valued services and initiatives that make a difference to people's lives. Whilst it has been reported recently that we are 8th most levelled up place in the country, I believe we need to turn that into levelling off, with steady services provided by our partners. This plan allows us to do more working with partners at Hampshire County Council to improve public transport, cycling and walking. More working with the hospital to get that new hospital to open its doors in 2028. Working with our primary health partners to deliver health centres in Winklebury and in Chinham. To get everyone to realise that much of the strain that our residents see in the health service is due to an essential missing part from our local health infrastructure. Simply, Madam Mayor, we need an urgent treatment centre and we need it now. We need it as patients, our GP surgeries need it, and our A&E department needs it. This plan, this budget is delivering what residents truly want. Investing in those facilities that are the envy of our neighbours, hopefully creating a new buzz about our new aquadrome that is bigger and louder than the buzz when it was first built. Working with a renewed focus on securing the future of the ice rink, celebrating our amazing communities we have seen in larger and more diverse numbers as we have emerged from our homes after lockdown. Creating a Basingstoke Town Centre as a place for everyone, not only those who have money to spend. This budget, Madam Mayor, puts us in a good place for the future. A future where we have not only become to be alert to the injustices that exist, but play our part in removing those injustices. Madam Mayor, I am privileged to propose this budget to the Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Right, if we could now have Councillor McCormick, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'll start in response to what's been said and then move on to some material on my own based on the papers. I welcome the statement on how we should proceed with caution with future development in the local plan. Am I right in thinking that the 17,800 homes is no longer going to happen? I'm sure there will be a lot of our residents out there who would breathe a huge sigh of relief if that were the case. Having said that, we also have to meet housing need in the borough. It's a very difficult, challenging decision. Regarding the climate emergency, now I don't think we've done enough in this council regarding the climate emergency. We declared a climate emergency in 2019, nearly 3 years later. Progress has been glacial at best. In fact, the progress that this council has made has been less than the speed of the retreat of the glaciers in our polar regions. We have a toolkit supporting residents. I think we should go a lot further. I think it's fairly evident that the changes that our residents need to make in terms of replacing boilers, insulation, electric cars, these are big ticket items. In the current economic climate, they're not likely to make that investment. It may be beyond the gift of this council to provide financial support, but they could at least lobby the government to provide it and provide some signposting. What metrics are we using to monitor our progress against the climate emergency? We're supposed to be a carbon neutral council by 2025. We're halfway there from our declaration. I don't think we're halfway there in terms of progress. We're certainly halfway there in terms of time. The developers must rise to the challenge of carbon neutral homes. What are we going to do as a council to help bring that about? I would very much like to think as a council we'd be building council houses of our own to meet our own challenges with housing, but that seems to be off the agenda. He mentions 50 mile per hour on the M3. Well, other councils like Oxford, for instance, are going that stage further and having zero emission zones. At what point might we look forward to having one of those in Basingstoke? He mentions the biodiversity improvement zones in Saundersfield. Now, I welcome that. Saundersfield is a wetland almost. It floods quite regularly because it's on the trajectory of the River Loddon. But I think we need to do a lot more because we need to recognise that in declaring an ecological emergency, what we're actually looking at is 50 years of decline in biodiversity. And we need to look very carefully at how we connect corridors of biodiversity to link up with other parts of the country and areas of outstanding natural beauty. Because to have little patches of biodiversity here and there is not really going to cut it. It's not going to even partially offset the massive losses we've had. Something like 90% of our songbird species have declined in the last 50 years. That ain't going to be restored just by having a patch of biodiversity in each ward. I'd welcome planting trees. We've planted loads of trees in the Silver Jubilee. I imagine we're going to plant even more in the Platinum Jubilee. By my estimation, we've over 500,000 trees in the town area of Basingstoke alone. But we need more trees to offset the rising temperatures and rising carbon dioxide. Increased recycling. Yes, we've been talking about that for 20 years. How are we going to do it? Where's the vision to get us to a true cyclic economy? Why aren't we looking at what people are doing in places like Denmark to actually achieve that vision? Health service, urgent treatment centre. Yes, we need one. We also need more GPs. Now, you could argue that this is beyond the gift of this council. But if you go out there and talk to residents on the door, this is one of the top issues at the moment. They can't get to see a doctor. This has happened in the last few years. What are we going to do as a council to add our voice to that and bring about change? And you will also have noticed, can't fail to have noticed, that a lot of the local surgeries are now being managed by operos. Privatisation by self. What are we going to do about it? We need to keep our NHS public. And now when I look at the budget, now I can't support this budget because of the cuts that are on the papers. Arts cuts, bus cuts, dial-a-ride. Set against the rising costs of living, this is yet another austerity budget after 12 years of austerity. Come on, people have had enough. What gives? Rising fuel prices, universal credit cuts, a rise in national insurance, inflation 7% and rising, pay rises not keeping up. Not to be outdone with some of these things that our government have put in front of us, the council is increasing the cost of replacement bins to £50 and hikes in bulk item collection by up to 67%. That's the Fly Chippers Charter. We can't support that. And what I would say in passing is I am grateful that there have been some concessions, such as the pest control fees. That was an especially unjust attempt to make people on very limited incomes have to pay money they haven't got for very remedial treatment of things like rat infestation. They shouldn't have to do that. We should be more humane than that. So I'm glad that that's off the agenda for this budget. I also welcome the increase in street cleaning. We all know what happened last year. Some of that, it could be argued, were factors outside of our control in terms of COVID hitting the teams in the winter programme and the delayed onset of the spring programme. But I do not want to see, and I think this will be shared across the chamber, the sight of waist-high grass in our parkland areas, our amenity areas, and the problems that the long grass caused for sight lines at our junctions. We should never get to that stage ever again. So in passing, I don't have any amendments for this budget because I don't think there are enough amendments that could make this a good budget. So I will be opposing, and I urge everyone to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCormack. If I could have Councillor Paul Harvey now. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I begin by saying, my soldani, z narodom Ukrainy. We stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. You know, sometimes there are just things that are bigger than the reality in the face of us. It is unbelievable what is going on, none more serious than a war in Europe, and I am sure our collective thoughts are with the people of Ukraine this evening. Madam Mayor, the last few years have tested people in our communities. The sheer scale of the COVID tragedy we have all seen unfold has been huge. How we chart our way out of the pandemic, how we plan the future of our borough, is more important now than ever. We are truly at a crossroads, and the choices we make in key moments, such as the budget and council plan before us, will define Basingstoke-on-Deane. The pandemic has further exposed the inequalities in our borough, and it is something we must change, and our budget and council priorities should better reflect that drive to directly tackle inequality in our communities. Those inequalities have now also been laid bare by the growing cost of living crisis. The £150 council tax rebate to cover the huge 54% rise in energy bills is meant to help those most in need. The £200 loan in fuel bills is also supposed to help those in need. Both measures, because of how they will be delivered, will leave many people who are in most fuel poverty without any help at all. Left to apply for a £144 million nationwide discretionary fund, that money will not stretch far enough to help those that are in most need for the cost of living crisis. It is in our communities that we are seeing people having to choose between heating and eating. It is in our neighbourhoods that food banks have been normalised as if they are a part of how society now works. We should not allow inequalities that we haven't seen for generations to become the new normal. I know budgets are not easy to put together, and I am acutely conscious of the effort that has been put in by our officers to produce a budget in these unprecedented times. We welcome the investment in the frontline staff, especially the grounds maintenance, something we have called for many years. I passionately believe in localism, in listening to and shaping policy from communities up, not top down. Local democracy is best when it is truly connected to communities. True leadership isn't saying to people, I'm listening, tell me what to think, or what do you want me to do? Martin Luther King is famous for saying that a genuine leader is not a searcher for consensus, but is a moulder of consensus. We need genuine leadership in our borough now more than ever. Let's not forget, this isn't a new administration. It's a bit like the old joke of the brush that's had 4 new heads and goodness knows how many handles. It is the same old brush. It is the same old administration. It's been one crisis after another, one failure after another, and people are crying out for an alternative that simply delivers results. The Basingview Master Plan has been dropped, but we need a new strategy to account for the new economic reality of work post-pandemic. Our premier business park, Basingview, should not be sacrificed for housing, nor should it be set up to compete against the town centre. It shouldn't become a new town centre. Haven't we learnt the lessons of New River Retail? We need to ensure that these key areas work cohesively together. Danesills and Houndsmills are critical to this council's finances, to this budget, and they too need investment and attention. Not that we drive out existing businesses, but that we see vacant business space regenerated before we fill and sacrifice our green fields. Our vision is not of low-wage jobs, but of a science park and industry that grows talent and skills. Basingstoke is known for its manufacturing. We are known for our innovation. Now is not the time to give up on those aspirations. Our vision is for local jobs and businesses who see Basingstoke-on-Deane as the place they want to stay. Not that we lose more businesses to Green Park or the Solent because we aren't offering the kind of environment they need. The Camrose saga is a disgrace, and it is shocking that this council would gift the county our land, helping a private developer to make millions, and in the process abuse the covenant that we knew existed, despite this council's inability to find it. All credit to the campaigners and the Gazette that did. It's a disgrace that another year has gone by without a house being built on Manydown. How many times have we said that in this chamber? The budget provisions slipping year on year. We need to see results, not more delay. A town centre vision is welcome, but we need to ensure the leisure park nor Basingview compete with our town centre. This administration has been responsible for a deal that was struck with New River Retail 7 years ago that didn't even deliver a master plan in all of those 7 years, that left us leisure facilities that were desperate for capital investment, a deal that had a fundamental flaw. It simply wasn't in the best interests of the people of Basingstoke and Dean. That whole episode was a very costly farce and has put us back years in delivering the future leisure for our borough. We must plan properly for leisure in our borough. We must see what the people need and truly be aspirational in the leisure we want to see. People want a new swimming pool, an ice rink that's fit for purpose. People want amazing, accessible and affordable leisure facilities. We need to protect our town centre and ensure that it will thrive in a post-COVID economy. The council's priority plans focus on thousands more flats, high-rise flats, being built in the town centre. It is stated several times in the plans and was written into the draft local plan policies that have been dropped from Thursday's EPH. The policy reads that development will typically be up to 6 storeys in height, with the potential for taller residential buildings nearer the station, including the malls. The policy calls for intensification. This is not the answer to our town centre's future. We don't want the potential for taller, high-rise city blocks in Basingstoke. The intensification of housing in the town centre needs to be opposed with as much vigour as we oppose the growth that would destroy the Loddon or the Test, or the character of our rural communities. I'm not into committee games or motions where we pit one community against another. We have got to be better than that. We are one Basingstoke and Dean, and we need to succeed together and not be divided. Economic growth should not be wedded to housing growth, and we should not fool ourselves that the two are inextricably linked. Let us be clear that the LEP has openly admitted they are targeting Basingstoke and Dean for growth, and they have absolutely no mandate from this council or the people of Basingstoke and Dean. We say we need an overarching strategy that binds all of these major projects together, that defines them in the wider setting of the borough, that we also look to the economic health of our market towns and villages, that we develop a sense of strategic direction where the major projects are mutually reinforcing and build on each other, where our budget and wider council plan meet that challenge. That's critical because we need to shape our borough's future. I say it's time we took back control of planning, took back the direction of our borough from those who were driving the agenda for 18,000 houses. What we develop, where and how has never been more important, and the implications for our budget and council plan and the people's priorities are crucial. Communities across our borough have made themselves heard loud and clear. They do not want 18,000 houses. In recent years, Basingstoke and Dean has taken more housing, and now we see the pressure for growth accepted by those in power in this council, now written into an evidence base that justifies 900 homes a year, a policy framework that permissively promotes development and empowers developers over communities, a local plan that is being prepared to deliver 18,000 homes. The tanker is headed in the wrong direction and it needs turning. We're being told that the Cabinet is considering what exceptional circumstances could be argued to reduce that number. But that is a red herring. It's a very clever argument right now to distract us, which in the face of a local plan inspector will fail. We have to challenge the figures. I have argued alongside colleagues that this council should pause its plan until we know the shape and form of the white paper on planning, and until we can address the numbers question with hard data. We do not have to continue with an evidence base with a plan that holds to 18,000 houses. We can step back and listen to the evidence coming from the analysis of the 2021 census data, a scientific evidence base that will stand up to scrutiny. The analysis that underpins the current 900 a year figure is provided by the 2014 household projections, which are based on 2009 data. That's 13 years out of date. Information in the 2021 population census is starting to emerge. Let's be clear, the old local plan had a figure of 825 units a year. The review started with 850 units a year. We are now at 900 units a year. The trajectory is upward, not reduced. This government has consistently said that the standard method provides a starting point for determining the level of need in an area. Ministers repeat that mantra in answer to questions. We have an opportunity to review the housing figures using credible evidence, using the Chelmer model, and we say we should seize that opportunity, and we are determined to turn this local plan tanker around. It's likely that Gove will determine that the government's target of 300,000 homes a year will become 1 million homes over 5 years, trying to make the figure more palatable. It's likely that we might get a slightly reduced figure, say a few thousand off of the 18,000, as a sop. Some people will crow about that as if it's some kind of success. Even then, we would still be sacrificing our towns and villages to this administration's idea of Greater Basingstoke. Even then, the level of growth will do irreparable harm and damage to the environment and our precious rivers. You can't build thousands of houses and claim a climate change emergency. This matters now because this budget and council plan need to empower us to meet the demands for infrastructure and investment that delivers places to live but protects the integrity of our communities, not enable a conveyor belt of housing. We want to see ambition and aspiration that doesn't destroy our environment. We want to see climate change initiatives with measurable targets announced that sees our borough directly invest in green energy. We want to listen to the community when we're told our green spaces are sacrosanct, that we must do better on biodiversity, on recycling, embracing passive house standards, green public transport, and so much more. COP26 was such a disappointment. The recent announcement that this council may not meet its climate change targets was a disappointment. I said last year that there is no point to anything we say here unless we tackle climate change. Having a strategy is good, but to miss our targets is unforgivable. I said the future is now in our hands, literally as never before, and our children will never forgive us if we leave them the legacy of climate change on the scale that's now predicted. I recognised the steps this council want to take on housing, on transport, energy, changing our way of life. We have to see action as well as good words. The idea that a mass rapid transit system will be a bus lane on some roads, and on others it might just be a bus on existing lanes, it's a farce. I challenge the Cabinet to deliver on its promise. We want to work with you to fulfil the commitments we have all made on climate change and the ecological emergency. We believe that the best is yet to come for our borough. People want good jobs, living in homes they can afford, to send their children to good local schools, and have better local doctor surgeries, run by our NHS, not a monopoly run by one American healthcare provider. There is a crisis in healthcare in our borough that has got to be addressed. People want quality places to live, which the way people live their lives is shaped by true place making. The need we have to breathe clean air, enjoy our local environment matters. Not paying, for example, to park in our parks to enjoy our open spaces. Working from home has become more normal, and even now, as the rules are relaxed and withdrawn, we need to acknowledge things are different. We need to back our small start-up enterprises and attract the new frontier of business emerging from the crisis. We want Basingstoke and Dean to be a beacon for entrepreneurial talent, but the economy needs to offer people who currently live here the life they desire. Levelling up is essential in Basingstoke and Dean. The idea that we have levelled up is misplaced. So many people are just hanging on, just affording their mortgage or their rent. just holding their jobs down. People are relying still on food parcels, and that's before the energy prices rocket this April. People need hope, but more than that, they need to see action, using our resources to make a difference to them and their families. We must ensure no part of our borough is left behind on this journey. We must be open to new ideas and willing to put our money where it has most effect. I genuinely have optimism for our future, but it's going to take an awful lot of hard work to get there. I say this council plan and budget do not come close to meeting people's expectations. We can do so much better than this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey, and Councillor Gavin James, if you could now speak. Thanks.
Oh, wrong one. There you go. No. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I should start by saying that I gave some thought to this budget speech. As you know, in previous years, I've perhaps been somewhat disloyal to the leaders of our country, and at a time when the terrible atrocities are happening in Ukraine, whether that's appropriate. Of course, one of the things and one of the freedoms that Ukraine are fighting for is that freedom to criticise your leader, that freedom of speech, that freedom to criticise your government without fear. I am so pleased that tonight I can do that. Easy to find the criticism, but I can do it without fear because I live in a free country and I hope Ukraine becomes one soon. Thank you. And it's great to be back in the chamber. I had a quick look round. Can I congratulate the officers on their work? I noticed the Labour group room, and Labour traditionally in that collectivism and unions, is now the faith room. How appropriate. And the old Lib Dem group room, parties and foundations in individuality and the freedom of the individual, is now the staff welfare room. And the Conservative group room has no purpose whatsoever. How appropriate. Madam Mayor, to start by setting the budget relies, for the officers, relies on stability at the heart of government, a degree of trust in our government. So it must be right to build a context about the government and where it is right now. So, Madam Mayor, in recent weeks, Boris Johnson claimed we had the fastest vaccine rollout in the country. In the country, obviously, in Europe. So I checked, and he's absolutely wrong, because he missed France, Italy, Portugal, Spain, Denmark, Ireland, Finland, Sweden, Belgium, Germany, Norway, Austria, Netherlands, and Greece in that statement. He also said there's more people in employment now than there was before the pandemic. But the Office of National Statistics say it's actually down 1.1%. There are less people employed now. It's a dodgy claim. He says the UK has the fastest growing economy in the G7. Check out the OECD website. We're 6th out of the G7, just beating Japan, although I think they're probably a PlayStation away from beating us. Boris claimed that crime is down in the UK, actually increased by 12%. It's a subject close to my heart, so I did have a look. And you'd be amazed to learn, Madam Mayor, that crime is down in certain categories. The pub violence is down since the pubs are closed, and shoplifting is down whilst all the non-essential shops are closed. And dwelling burglaries are down because we're all at bloody home. So that's the great government achievement there. It's a dodgy claim. And of course, they are the party of tax cutters. Cutting taxes is what Tories do, except this year, where they're increasing it to raise, I'll put it in weekly terms because it's more fun, £230 million a week for the NHS and social care. Madam Mayor, I remember a bus with even bigger number on it driving around. I don't know why we can't use that instead. Maybe that Brexit dividend was dodgy claim too. Who knows? And of course, there's confusion in the heart of government that really impacts on our budget. The new homes bonus is done. The review is over. We've been waiting for it for years and years. They've done the review of the new homes bonus and decided to, well, they haven't got a clue yet. They just don't know. So we don't know, so we can't plan for it. The 3-year spending review, that's been done. Departmental spending review is all over. And it's translated into you'll get nothing this year. We have no idea what we're doing the year after because we just haven't got a clue. The business rate regime, and you're a big fan of business rate retention in previous years when you were political. Obviously that's been frozen this year, regime frozen, government haven't got a clue what to do with it. And even the new and very limited services grant has been distributed on an old formula. It's for this year only, because next year we just haven't got a clue what we're doing. The good news is, the long-awaited government white paper on levelling up has appeared. And that really didn't clear anything up at all. Apart from an indication that the stream of funding for local authorities to spend what they believe
to be their residents' priorities is not happening. We're sticking with the same old beauty contest where local authorities dragging consultants, spending tens of thousands, bidding for money from government to spend on what government has ring-fenced it for in the hope they get it. The big winners in this are consultants. The big losers are local authorities and their residents. But that's sadly where we are. A consultant's arm race, spending tens of thousands of pounds, potentially getting nothing. Now, the temptation, Madam Mayor, is to blame Rishi Sunak for this. He's the Chancellor. He should be all over it. But I'm going to be fair to Rishi. Firstly, it's been a pandemic. He's been forced to work from home. And with all those bloody parties next door, it's not surprising he can't concentrate. Madam Mayor, Downing Street has descended into chaos. Boris Johnson's premiership reminds me of an 80s karaoke night. It starts with Europe and the final countdown. I think we've got to the stage of Bon Jovi, living on a prayer. None of our Conservative MPs or councillors have come out publicly to ask Boris to go. So I assume they support him, all he's doing, and the way he's doing it. The same could not be said locally. You don't have to agree with someone to recognise the time, the energy and the commitment that goes into leading this council. And I thank Councillor Rattigan for that. I get the impression that, unlike Boris, he could not maintain the support of the Conservatives locally. He once said he wanted to make Basingstoke the capital of the South. Perhaps if he'd promised to turn it into Peppa Pig World, he would have gained their undying love. But the more you look, the more similarities you see with central government. The budget papers state that the response to the consultation proves that the Council's budget proposals are aligned with the priorities of the people. 87 responses, 0.05%. There are more members of the Liberal Democrats in Basingstoke than there were respondents. In fact, I reckon that if you've got all the Conservative councillors in Basingstoke and got their partners to write in as well, that gives you 87. I don't want to start a conspiracy theory, by the way, but it's quite possible. It seems like a dodgy claim, secret, just like central government. Madam Mayor, we're told that residents' parking charges are going to go up. Now, I remember when they were £22 a year. They were cost neutral to this council. That was the agreement. We don't want to have a town centre tax. They'll be cost neutral. After years of cuts to enforcement staff and digital systems to reduce processing costs, they're now £50 to cover the cost. It seems a bit like a dodgy claim as well. Clearly, this is a town centre tax. But of course, I do accept with this one, we operate under licence from Hampshire County Council, which has already put this budget through. They put it through themselves, they've already agreed to this, and in fact, they had some support, I think, from certain members representing Brookvale over there on the day as well. Not that I'm going to make a fuss about that in election leaflets, of course. And tonight, and the latest in dodgy claims, we're going to save Sanders Field from, well, the only people ever to think of building on it or doing anything with it or turning it into a leisure facility were the Tories. So the latest claim, dodgy claim, is we're going to save Sanders Field from ourselves. How brave. Madam Mayor, there's some confusion as well in this local chamber. You'll remember, last time we were in this chamber, there was a motion to reduce the number of homes being built in the borough. It's been mentioned again tonight. In fact, later on tonight, there was supposed to be another one against development. And yet the same councillors that are behind those motions will vote for this budget, one would have thought. This budget is balanced. It's balanced on the basis that the tax base will increase by 1,000 homes a year plus. That's what it says. 4-year review. You can see it in the medium-term financial strategy. In fact, bear in mind the amount of flats we build, it's probably more like 1,200 homes a year because that's based on Band D properties. So the Tories are in a bizarre position where tonight they're going to vote for something that's dependent on the successful delivery of something they're opposed to. It'll take the rest of my speech for them to work it out. I don't have to. I'm going to oppose it. Madam Mayor, other than that, the budget is as it is. We know that subsidised bus contracts will not be renewed. We don't know where, because just like central government, a bit confused. We haven't decided on that one yet. And after 2 years, when community groups have been so important and the cost of living crisis is coming, which means they'll be really important again, we know that they are facing cuts. We don't quite know when or where. It's not this year. It's possibly next year, but we haven't decided because we haven't got a clue what we're doing. The following, last year's biggest ever cuts to culture, events have been saved for now. So we are going to lose a Transport Festival and Kite Festival, not this year, but probably next year, but we're not really sure because we really don't know what we're doing. So it's really hard to find a strategy in there at all. In fact, the nearest we got to a strategy is for the town centre. And like Councillor Harvey mentioned the town centre and the vision we have for it, and of course we've seen it all before, because it's almost identical to the one produced by a different set of consultants in 2014. The one from 2021 is the one from 2014. It's just been renewed. They've used different crayon to colour in the same pictures. It's quite impressive how consultants get away with it. It is a strategy that was undeliverable, unviable, and was a complete waste of money. It's unfortunate. I think the administration need to understand that recycling your mistakes is not tackling climate change. Just to make that absolutely clear. We've also seen renewed spending on reception, customer services, street cleansing and environmental services. It's worth noting this is not a new beefed up service. This is just a brief reversal of cuts that went before. It makes clear most of these extra spending are for 2 years only. So in fact, what we've done, we've run out of things to cut. So this year, with the last year of New Homes bonus money, we're going to get more things in, so we've got something to cut next year. It's genius. The increased charges for replacement bin and bulky waste charges stopped last year, so much noise and fanfare. Slightly quieter this year as they finally get introduced. Interesting, that. It's a budget that tries quietly to slip through the charges of last year. They tried to defer, whilst making lots of noise about cuts they have deferred to slip through quietly next year. Madam Mayor, the budget is a big disappointment. Most councils have run out of money. I think we've run out of ideas. The Cabinet, despite its somewhat renewal, is rather like the Downing Street reset button. It's sort of worn out. So local Tories, more like national Tories than we thought. Dodgy claims, confusion, sleight of hand. It's not really good enough. We should be demanding better. We should be going greener. So I will oppose the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Right. As per this agenda item, we are now requested on pages 22 to 23 to do various things. And what I'm going to do is ask, well, the leader has formally proposed, but what I understand is that Councillor Isert will now second this agenda. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak at the end of the debate, Councillor Isert?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I'd like to speak now, if I may.
Sure, go for it.
Right. The MTFS and budget once more demonstrates that continuing sound, careful financial management is enabling us to meet the pressures and uncertainties of today's world, including COVID, inflationary costs, increased demand for services and low interest rates, and yet continue to maintain good services for residents. Indeed, whereas other councils are forced to reduce core services, we're able to invest substantially by over £1 million in 22-23 and over 25 new members of staff to enhance service areas important to residents. Most recently, additional funding for an extra waste and recycling crew will, it is hoped, speed up collections and lessen the risk of missed collections. This report also makes it clear that Basingstoke and Deane is a council able to plan for the future based on good financial foundations, both in terms of realistically projected revenue and capital, a council equipped to deal with potential uncertainties and cost and income fluctuations. Reserves of £1 million are provided here to help the local economy and businesses recover from the pandemic, and £2 million to enable us to meet our climate change and biodiversity commitments. I would like to respond to some of the leaders of the opposition. Councillor McCormack, I thought that was quite a muted response in relation to the budget, and in fact that seemed to be the general tone. And in many ways it feels as though there's quite a lot of support for the budget, a recognition that this is a well-run council. I sense that there was considerable support from Councillor McCormack to the new leader's proposals in relation to slowing down the housing delivery, requiring net zero carbon new homes,
biodiversity improvement zones, proposals for reducing vehicle emissions, more access to cycling and public transport. What I think it demonstrates is that as an administration, we have provided the strong financial foundations to enable us to implement these necessary measures to meet the challenges that we face as a borough. So we're far from out of ideas. I think that Councillor Harvey says, and I think with some truth, that the pandemic has exposed inequalities, and there is on the horizon the issues surrounding cost of living increases. But you know that there's a lot that is being done for those who are in need in terms of the improvement in the national living wage. We have high employment in the borough. There are changes to the universal credit taper rate, which are going to provide an extra £1,000 a year for over 2 million low-income families. There is a lot that's being done in relation to the energy crisis, particularly energy bills rebates, the warm home discount, the winter fuel payments and the cold weather payments. It seems I'm always glad to have him alongside. I agree also with Councillor Harvey that the progress on Many Down has been disappointing, but we're getting there, and we've now given planning permission. We've now agreed the Section 106. And the important
You have
thing
1
is
minute
it's going to be
left.
a high quality development. This council didn't want to hand over the land to volume house builders. We wanted to stay in and make sure that it's going to be built to high standards, and that is what's going to happen, I'm sure. So I think that my abiding view is that that there is a lot of support for the approach that this administration is taking with the budget. There's a recognition that that we are continuing to run our finances in a very sound way, and we are in a good position to meet the challenges that we face in relation to climate change, housing, and all the other challenges. So at that point, I will conclude.
Perfect timing, Councillor Isaac. Your time had run out. Right. Thank you. Okay. Does anybody else, or does anybody want to put their hands up to debate the budget? Councillor Donoghue. Donoghue? Please. Did I not say Councillor Donoghue?
I get used to people saying Councillor Donoghue.
Oh, I thought I said Donoghue.
I'm doing a lot of family tree. Got a lot of family tree research these days, so I do know it is definitely Donoghue.
Okay, well, I kind of know you as the hedgehog man, but here you go.
I just couldn't let that pass. That there's a lot of support in the chamber from the opposition parties for the budget. The reason that the response perhaps was a little bit muted was that we're lost for words. The breathtaking lack of vision. I do welcome that there does seem to be a little drift in the right direction. The talk about the biodiversity zones in each ward in Basingstoke, it sounds great. But of course, we'll do that. We'll do it half-heartedly, and then we won't link them up, and then it'll all feel pointless. So yeah, I just wanted to rise to say that it wasn't support for what you're suggesting. It was a sort of being a bit of a loss for words to some extent, and you can't really criticise what isn't there, and there isn't really much of a vision. I've been passed the Ukrainian proverb that relates to the NHS debate and the state of GPS services in Basingstoke. The proverb reads, "The earth will cover the doctor's mistakes," which I thought was rather poignant. But yeah, don't mistake breathtaking silence for support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donoghue. Right, I have only one other person who's indicated they wish to speak. Councillor Vokes, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, these are very challenging times for our residents, with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic continuing to affect many aspects of our lives, and now the conflict in Ukraine creating more uncertainty. So sound financial planning becomes increasingly important for us all, and it is often the comparatively small things which have the biggest impact on our daily lives. So my appreciation goes to the officers and the portfolio holder for identifying the funds to defer the reduction in grants to the community and voluntary sector this year, and the removal of introducing a concession charge for rat pest control treatment. These are both comparatively small, but have a big impact on many of our residents. While this borough provides comparatively high levels of grant funding to the local community and voluntary sector, we are also a comparatively well-resourced borough, and it is therefore the right thing to do at this time. Effective charitable and voluntary organisations often support the most vulnerable in our society at times when they need it most, and in doing so, they generate massive social and economic benefits which are often not fully appreciated. As the new portfolio holder for community development, I look forward to working with the sector and learning more over the next few months. I'm also pleased to support the increased investment in grounds maintenance staff in this budget. 2021 was an extraordinary year for our estates teams, dealing with staff shortages and an unusually perfect growing season of rain and sunshine and no dry spell in the summer to slow growth down. The grounds maintenance teams are to be commended on their commitment to keep going through the summer when it must have felt like they would never catch up. This additional investment will go a long way, in addition to measures already put in place by the estates teams to keep our green spaces, hedges and trees in great shape. So I support the approval of this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vokes. Can I have Councillor Bean now, please? Bunny, if you could, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The impacts of the COVID pandemic are still being felt, and I anticipate will continue to be felt by residents and businesses for some time yet to come. It's therefore important, through our budget setting process, we recognise the impact it has had on all those in our community and how we will continue to support residents in the years to come. Speaking to my own portfolio, health, wellbeing and leisure, this continues to be a priority for this administration. We have since 2015 invested almost £5.5 million in facilities around the borough of Basingstoke and Deane, with further investment coming this year. Projects this year will include refurbishment of the Downgrange athletics track and installation of a spectators stand, further maintenance work to the aquadrome to ensure it can continue to be used whilst we develop a plan for a future facility, and Stratton Park Pavilion, which is almost nearing completion of a refurbishment. This is all testament to the hard work of the officers that deliver these projects and do an incredible job of securing additional funding as well. This year will also see an updated leisure and recreational needs assessment, which will be used to support updates to our existing strategies and ensure investment is based on a robust evidence of need. We are also working on a health and wellbeing strategy, which will come to the CEP committee later this year. It will be an outcome-driven strategy focusing on priority areas where we as a council, using the relationships, facilities and partnerships that we have, can start to deliver real outcomes for our residents that improve health and wellbeing outcomes. The health and wellbeing of our residents continues to be a priority for this administration. Moving now briefly onto the additional resourcing proposed within this budget, we know how important it is for our residents to be able to contact us when they need to. In recognition of this fact, the budget puts as a priority additional resources in customer services, including face-to-face reception cover within the Dean's building, as well as additional staffing to support customer queries. This shows our continued commitment to our residents by providing them the support they need when they contact us. In summary, Madam Mayor, I will be supporting the budget this evening, which is absolutely pivotal in ensuring Basingstoke and Deane continues to be, in my opinion, one of the best places to live. Residents tell us they're proud of the town they live in, and rightly so. This budget enables us to continue to build upon our town's successes and continue to set ourselves for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bean. And I only have at the moment Councillor Raffel on my list. Councillor Raffel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support this budget as it will allow the Council to continue its priorities on protecting the natural environment and seeking climate improvement. This Council has one of the best resourced and most experienced natural environment teams in the county, so we are well placed to tackle the ecological emergency that we have declared. We have the funds to recruit an officer to head up this work. We will set a baseline of where our borough stands. We will revamp the green infrastructure strategy to set out our objectives. We'll look forward to implementing the objectives in the Environment Act when the guidance comes through, and we will build on our current successes. The biodiversity improvement zone in Hatchwarren has been measured, and it's measured the increase in biodiversity since it was introduced. It was one of the first, if not the first, in the country. And as the leader has pointed out, we are hoping for more to be rolled out across the borough, but in particular, Brighton Hill, Norden and Cliddeston are ahead in that. And we will move forward to protect Saundersfield, as the leader has said, as an ecologically protected area for the residents of Southam and Buckskin. We're rolling out local nature reserves, and this year we will be bringing forward crabtree plantation. We're working with Urban and Civic so that the Manydown Country Park comes forward for the benefit of the residents of Winklebury whilst the development of new homes takes place. And we want to see that it too is an ecological improvement area. We've created an East of Basingstoke Natural Environment Management Plan that seeks to interconnect the green open spaces between Eastrop, Old Basing, Litch Pit and Blackdam. It will aim to protect and enhance the natural environment within its boundary, such as the north-flowing chalk streams that run from south of the M3 underground and flow into Crabtree Plantation and the Basing Fen. We've also made significant progress with our work with the Basingstoke Canal Society in our efforts to link up the last 5 miles of the canal through a series of footpaths from Maple Durwell through Old Basing into Eastrop Park. In all that we do, we must work with our partners, especially our volunteers, and at long last, after the pandemic, we are back having a constructive face-to-face dialogue with them. During the pandemic, we created a dedicated team of staff, no longer spread over 3 directorates, and we have employed new staff and now have 2 rangers specifically to work with our volunteers. The ecological emergency must challenge us to do much more. It must inspire us to protect our landscapes and our water catchment areas, our woodlands, our boggy areas, our heathlands and our chalk downland from the bulldozers. We have to set a benchmark and we have to set objectives that we can measure so that when we finish being councillors on this council, we can measure whether we have achieved improvement. Now let me turn to climate improvement. Our budget allows us to carry on with this important work. Last May, I set out 4 practical steps as to how we can improve the climate around us. Firstly, we would provide our residents with the information that they needed to make a difference, and we established a climate change toolkit. Secondly, I wanted us to do what we could to help residents with on-street parking to have access to electrical vehicle charging points. And we're hoping that this will be rolled out later this year, working with the County Council who are responsible for pavements. Thirdly, I wanted us to have
1 more minute left.
Innovative policies for our local plan update. The policies have been designed and are ready for members now to consider them. And finally and fourthly, I wanted us to lead by example by trying to make our council buildings carbon neutral by 2025. The carbon audits are in progress. Their work will be announced later this year and we'll find out whether that goal was realistic when it was set. So we will be moving forward, but our objectives must move forward too. I would like us to set realistic new goals, and perhaps we should look at waste and pollution, focusing on removing single-use plastics from our lives and reducing the pollution that goes into our streams and rivers. All of these things are financially achievable within this budget, and so I ask members to support it.
Thank you. It's good to hear about the outflows, because of course you've made numerous comments about Saunders Fields, and of course the sewage from Buckskin flows into Saunders Fields at the moment. And that's just a point of clarification. Councillor Philip. It does. The outflow of the sewage from Buckskin has been routed. Councillor Finnemore, please, followed by Councillor Jones.
Just a quick retort to Councillor Raphael, really, about his far-reaching and perhaps ridiculous claims on ecological emergencies. As we've argued, we're dumping sewage into our beautiful rivers. That's what we're doing. What are we doing about it? We can't build enough required houses where there's planning, because on the golf course we don't have a sufficient water supply in our borough. And we're allowing developers to offset nitrate pollution on other areas so they can build in our borough. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, and we're building all over our green fields. And talk about recycling. How can you be recycling when you're closing all the bin banks in all the areas? Whitchurch, Oakley, I mean, it's ridiculous. That's just for now.
Thank you, Councillor Finnemore. Councillor Jones, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a bit of information. Saunders Fields. I thought this council had already agreed that it would be left as an overflow area if there was another flood in Buckskin. The way it seems to be talking over the other side is if we're creating some new diversity. What was agreed that we would leave it as it was, and if you remember when we were talking about doing the leisure park, I raised that and that was agreed. So all this talk about Saunders Field and we're going to do this, it's already been agreed. So what are we talking about it for? Thank you.
Right. Is there anybody else that wishes to contribute at all to this debate? Councillor Howard-Sorrell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to briefly quote from a BBC article today. Our report clearly states that places where people live and work may cease to exist, the ecosystems and species that we've all grown up with and that are central to our cultures and inform our languages may disappear. If temperatures rise between 1.7 and 1.8 degrees above the 1850s level, then the report states that half the human population could be exposed to periods of life-threatening climatic conditions arising from heat and humidity. And this is on the latest IPCC report that was released in the last few days. But I'm glad that we've done what we have locally. I would just like to see a bit more, because this is quite a startling report. So maybe think some more on that, Councillor Raphael. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howard-Sorrell. Right, anybody else? No? We done? Okay, right. I don't know how you want to do this. Should we vote for the whole thing in its entirety, or would you like to go through the council notes, the council determines and the council approves? I do apologise, I forgot. Leader, you have a chance to reply. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'll keep it short. I just would like to clarify some points that have been questioned by members of the opposition. We unanimously voted against the number. We need to work on the evidence to present our case. For the number that represents the constraints that we have locally, and in my view takes into account not only the high delivery rate that we've had, but as I said, we spend a lot of time talking about the number. We seem to forget the importance of the 5-year land supply. I fully intend to support every member of this council to support the Cabinet in making an exceptionally strong case to change the 5-year land supply. The calculation that we currently have, I repeat, is frankly ridiculous. The reason why we are delivering at the rate we are delivering is because we are held to ransom by developers for the 10,000 permissions that have already been given. That is wrong. I believe everybody in this chamber believes that, and that is a point that I think it needs to be made abundantly clear to everybody who doesn't understand the nuances of the planning system. I will be making that case, as will my colleagues, to the Secretary of State. I would appreciate it. Councillor Harvey clearly has a closer relationship with the Secretary of State than I do, if he would support me in that too.
Okay, right. Okay, so apologies for getting the summing up. Right, so shall we vote on it in its entirety? Does that make sense? Excellent. Right, so if everybody would like to vote electronically, I think we might as well go straight to it, please. Is that everybody done? We have 4 people that haven't voted. They might have chosen not to vote, but they can choose to abstain if they wish. Okay, I'm being told that that's not correct now, and everyone has voted. So the budget has been approved, and we move to the next item. Right, item number 9 is the Capital Programme Update and Strategy Report. This agenda item is on pages 157 to 208. As per this agenda item, Council is being requested on page 158 to various recommendations. I understand that Councillor John Isaac will propose this recommendation, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This strategy examines how the Council will finance, allocate and manage capital investment into services important to residents and which contribute to the borough's success as a place to live, work and enjoy. The updated capital programme is 132.097 million and includes new priority additions of £73.31 million. This includes £40 million expenditure through the new property investment strategy, targeting enhanced returns from newly acquired properties funded out of the sale of existing assets that are, following review, considered appropriate for sale. Additionally, funding is planned for the new homes at Manydown North by means of accelerated infrastructure funding to the tune of £25 million. Following a review of Section 106 allocations, £1.402 million has been identified as unearmarked for schemes, and therefore this is removed from this programme to allow specific schemes to be developed to utilise these funds. Capital receipts over the 4-year period are identified in the report. It is proposed to inject £16 million in total of annual revenue contributions into the capital programme. It is expected that the community infrastructure levy contributions will be an important new source of capital in the years ahead. This report outlines a substantial capital investment programme to 2025-26 in our borough and for the benefit of our residents. In terms of housing at Manydown North, infrastructure, the town centre, the leisure park and the aquadrome, public transport and cycling and meeting our climate change and biodiversity objectives. I'm proud to say that this is a fully funded capital programme to 25-26, and therefore I recommend it to Council for endorsement tonight.
Thank you very much, Councillor Isaac. I understand Councillor Graham Faulkner wishes to second this recommendation. Councillor Faulkner, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I shall reserve my right, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Faulkner. If you could stand up in future when you're speaking on the mic, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, does anybody else want to speak to this paper? Councillor McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, there's much to welcome in this paper, not least the commitment to spend on the aquadrome. I think that's a project that's developed urgency. I would very much like to see some similar commitments to the Camrose ground and the ice rink as well. I guess that's a bit too much to ask, but you know, I'm supportive of the aquadrome capital works. We've got a lot of work to do in this borough, and the amounts that are contained within this for certain projects are very large indeed, and some of the others are very small, vanishingly small in some cases. But I also noticed on page 171 slippage on 2 and 3 Viables cottages. These are the last council houses in Basingstoke, and they've been empty for years. It's a scandal how long they've been emptied. In fact, I had a phone call from a Grove resident offering to buy them because the council seemed so unwilling to do anything with them. If anyone wants to take him up on his offer, I can put them in touch with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McCormick. If I could have Councillor James now, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I welcome the property investment strategy, £10 million a year coming from the sale of other assets into new assets that will hopefully generate more income to support services as council. It's welcome that at last, and it's been a feature of my budget speeches since 2010, that we need to look upwards at how we generate revenue rather than just how we cut things. So that's a welcome sign. The word of caution, of course, is we are still primarily a council, and we're here to provide services to our residents. Our investment strategies are there to support those services. They should not be any other purpose behind them. There's always an idea that you look at some properties in some areas and you say, oh, we don't get a lot of money from that. It's not really we hold it for other purposes. We might hold it because it really matters to the people who live on it or the people who use it. And I think it's really important we don't lose sight of that as we look to get more from our assets, which is right. I'm a little bit less excited, once again, than Councillor McCormack on the aquadrome. I see 3.961 million. Now, by my guess, and Winchester's recently had one, obviously it's a Lib Dem council, they do a lot more exciting things down there. Theirs cost about £40 million. So this is not a new aquadrome, this is another survey, another patch-up job. We need a lot more money than this. I think there's a lack of ambition, and I get it, because we haven't got a clue what we're doing with the leisure park. We've lost that. So there's some great things in here, but I can't support it, because there's not enough to tackle climate change. It's not specific on tackling climate change. There's not enough about the leisure park. There's nothing about a potential sporting arena that could be used by a football club. There is just not enough. Lack of ambition, lack of ideas. So I will abstain because I don't want to vote against some of the good stuff that's in here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor James. Do I have anybody else who wishes to speak to this agenda item? Nope. Okay, Councillor Faulkner, would you like to stand up? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Isaac has covered most points, and indeed the members to my right. Yeah, at first sight, it did look a bit fearful because of the size of the capital programme. But when you got to it, and as Councillor James has said, the property investment strategy is based on disposing of existing assets and making them work better. So our exposure is a lot less than it might seem at first. So I commend supporting this programme.
Thank you very much, Councillor Faulkner. Councillor Isaac, would you like to wrap up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, I'm struck by the general level of support for our capital programme. I hope this continues. And it does, being serious, it does represent an opportunity, I think, for us to work together. And we don't have a monopoly on good ideas, and that's demonstrated through a lot of the good work and the good ideas that we get in relation to the town centre map and the leisure park map. So I do think that it's one of the strengths of this council that we have that we are able to share ideas and work together. I can assure Councillor James that there's no lack of ambition. The £3.9 million for the aquadrome is there just to make sure that the existing facility is able to continue to operate and provide a good quality environment for our residents. But we're absolutely clear as an administration that we are going to ensure that there is a new aquadrome, either complete refurbishment of the existing one or indeed a new aquadrome for residents in the future. So let me be clear on that particular point. And in relation to Viables Cottages, there's a considerable amount of problems with those buildings, and additional funding has been required, and that is in place, and the work, I think, Councillor Robinson, is that underway?
Yes.
Good. Yes, thank you. So I'll conclude.
Thank you very much, Councillor Isaac. In view of what Councillor James said, I suppose we might as well go straight to electronic vote. If everybody could please vote on this, that'd be great. Thank you. I have. Oh. Shall I tell him? Councillor, your vote hasn't come through. You caught the fish now. Thanks. Okay, on the basis of that vote, I think it's pretty clear that the agenda has been carried. We move on to number 10. Members, this agenda item is on pages 209 to 286. And as per this agenda item, Council is being requested on page 210 to various recommendations. I understand that Councillor Isaac will propose this recommendation. Councillor Isaac, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to recommend to Council the Strategic Asset Management Plan to 2025-26. These proposals provide for the first time a comprehensive strategy for managing our property assets, which contribute over £16 million in revenues and enable us to provide services to residents without having to depend, as other councils do, on council tax, business rates, charges for services and government grants. It aligns for the first time our strategies over 4 years for property and financial management. The plan covers 3 categories of property held: investment, operational and regeneration. This Council's climate change objectives are also central to this new plan in providing a strategy to decarbonise our directly controlled assets in recognition that our properties contribute significantly to the Council's net carbon emissions. The plan also contains an annual property plan setting out specific targets for the year. The objectives of the overall strategic plan is to help meet Council priorities by delivering efficiencies and improvements in our operational portfolio, better resilience and value growth in our investment properties, and the realisation of regeneration benefits, whether at the leisure park, the town centre, or working with our partners Vivid and Sovereign in Buckskin, Southam and Winklebury. We also seek further opportunities to co-locate with other public sector partners so as to achieve operational efficiencies for the benefit of residents who use our services collectively. On Decarbonisation, the plan provides for buildings we occupy to be comprehensively surveyed and assessed by energy audits so as to identify works and capital budgets required to make them sustainable. This, by its nature, is a major undertaking. Where we have no direct control, such as investment properties, we will work with tenants and long leaseholders to secure building improvements. On investment property, we propose to dispose of non-core and underperforming assets and reinvest some £40 million over the life of the plan to improve returns and achieve diversification. In case it's required, up to £10 million will be available for forward funding. On community buildings, the priorities will include better programme planned maintenance and energy efficiency works for some of our 1,093 assets and the sale of or transfer of some facilities to community groups and parish councils. Detailed and accountable governance structures for the new plan are outlined in the report. Delivery for residents, improvement, financial resilience and decarbonisation are at the heart of this new strategy, which I recommend now to Council tonight.
Thank you very much, Councillor Isaac. Again, I understand Councillor Graham Faulkner wishes to second this recommendation. Councillor Faulkner, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I'll speak now, Madam Mayor. Okay. We gave this quite an airing at the Audit and Accounts Committee in January. What this strategy illustrates is just how complex are some of our activities. And going through £300 million of investment property and 1,000 operational assets, you sometimes wonder what would it be like to be in a council where they have no property but rely on council tax and government funding. But we are sadly where we are. We looked at issues such as, in detail, such as Atwood Close, which illustrated the very different reasons that we hold assets. It's not always just about cash or profit. We particularly looked at the governance procedures which were in this report and the delegation of the Section 151 officer. And we picked out community centres to illustrate some of the issues which affect the decarbonisation objective, because in particular on assets which we don't have operational control. Now, I note that the annual property plan will no longer come to council but to cabinet, but as that is an operational plan, I'm personally satisfied that council will still have the strategic control, and thus I support this recommendation to council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Faulkner, thank you very much. Right, we have Councillor Robinson, Tristan first, and then Councillor Phillimore. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The strategic management plan is vital. I can't read my own writing now. Strategic management plan is vital to defending our objectives as a council through our freehold assets, including investments, land and property. This strong financial management is essential as the council's property portfolio totals some £300 million. Many residents have asked in the past, why do we have a property portfolio? But it is that property portfolio which raises £16.2 million a year, twice as much as council tax income. And without strong management of these assets, residents would pay more and get less. But it's not just financial income we seek, important though that is. This plan leads for the first time for 4 years and focuses on the decarbonisation of our community and operational buildings. We're committed to looking at green clauses on leases and improving the energy efficiency and sustainability of our property. Moving to social value, I'm pleased to see our focus on regeneration in this plan, particularly the Malls, Winklebury and Buckskin with South Ham. Through work with the Strategic Housing Association partners, a planning application is due to be submitted by Vivid for landmark regeneration in Winklebury, talked about for over a decade and finally coming to fruition. I would also like to say something further on social value, and very specifically on Annex 1 of the report, under which the residential mobile home park at Atwood Close is listed under potential disposals. It appears here, due to it being an unusual asset for a council to have. However, as Cabinet Member for Housing, I will not support the disposal of this asset. I know many members feel the same way and wish to provide this reassurance to local residents. Overall, I welcome the Strategic Asset Management Plan and the strong foundation it provides for high-quality services for residents in years to come. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Robinson. I have Councillor Phillimore now, please.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Graham there, Faulkner, that it is a complex process we're going through. But as far as the leisure and recreational needs assessment goes, on community buildings and centres, some of these leases, how far have we got on this assessment? Some of these leases are over a year past renewal date. And some of these community centres need to know where they stand regarding the possible full asset transfer or anything else that's involved. So I think we're a bit behind the 8 ball on this one.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phillimore. Next person on my list is Councillor McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to say, looking at this paper, one thing jumps out at me, and that's Annex 2, page 279, where we have a prioritised list of buildings for decarbonisation, lest we forget we have committed this council to becoming carbon neutral by 2025, and that suggests that all our buildings, all our vehicles, all our operational assets will have to be carbon neutral by 2025. And a look through this paper gives an alarming list of energy ratings, and even some of the ones that have C or better ratings have things like high gas consumption. I wonder how they're going to get on when this Russian gas gets turned off. But all of them, nearly all of them, at best, under the final column, timescale for capital bid and works, TBC following audit, this is halfway into our timetable from declaring a climate emergency to achieving climate neutrality. We've got all these buildings on this list, dozens of them, and we haven't even got indicative timescales for a capital bid, let alone planning the works, let alone completing the works. All of this, all these buildings in the next 3 years, and then when you get to the end, you've got a load that are just tenanted with nothing in the columns, as if, oh, it's nothing to do with us, our tenants will sort it out for us. That's not good enough, and for that reason alone, I cannot support this paper. Thank you.
Councillor McCormick, thank you very much. Right, I have Councillor Tilbury on the list.
Was that me? Have I got the right? Oh, there we are. Right. Yeah, I think Councillor Robinson's already made the point I was going to make about Atwood Close. Who raised this audit and accounts, and I always remember this council back the last time they tried to sell off Atwood Close, which was an absolute shambles as it turned out in the end. I mean, they had to back down. We brought in the chairman of the Park Owned Residents Association, who turned up and gave the card to the cabinet members, and of course the patron was one Mr. David Cameron MP, at which point they decided to pull the whole thing. It caused a lot of distress to the residents, and the idea that we should put some of these sort of things in there without really thinking about it. Yeah, it is an old asset, but so are a lot of other things. But people need to ask the questions about these things. People live in these houses. This is their home. This is their life. They put up a very good case, the residents at that time, and they shouldn't have to go through that again. So please, can we just take this out? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tilbury. Right, I have 2 more speakers on the list. Councillor Howard Sorrell first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mainly just wanted to thank Councillor Robinson and Councillor Faulkner for their assurances. I spoke on the Atwood Close issue at the Cabinet meeting recently, and I gained assurances there as well on behalf of the residents that nothing was going to happen at this time. Thank you for reiterating those assurances, and thank you for Councillor Tilbury for speaking on the issue as well, because it's really important to the residents. It's of great concern seeing it appear without any explanation. So the fact that we've now received that has been much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadsarl. And Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Having a plan is a good idea, no two ways about it, in terms of taking the process of looking after our assets forward. I think Councillor Faulkner might have misspoke when you said it was sad where we're at, because I don't think it is sad, actually. The asset portfolio that we hold as a borough council actually reflects Basingstoke and Dean, and I think it reflects this borough's history of being an essential part of the fabric of our community in so many different ways. And so the assets we hold reflect the way we have approached over many, many decades our trustee and managementship of the important parts of our borough. And in that vein, in that context, I think, you know, perhaps the devil was going to be in the detail of some of this. I think the issue to do with community centres is a very important one, as just one example. What if the community centre is found to be unsound in the context of the environmental assessments that are being undertaken? What happens then? Where is the investment? Who picks up the bill, so to speak? And can we have a reassurance through the process that obviously is going to follow from here that those community centres and such other buildings that have such social value are safe in our hands? I think that's a very important point. And how will the change or the investment that might be required be managed, particularly alongside those trustees, those boards, those structures, those organisations, those members of the community who are fundamentally part of running those facilities? Where did they fit into that agenda alongside decisions that may be made by those in control of the asset directly? Separately to all of that, I just want to say I agree with the point that Councillor Robinson's raised in terms of Atwood Close and other speakers this evening, having had the debate over many, many years in many, many different forms with many, many different people. The fact that that community can be reassured and given security is important, and I welcome the public commitment given this evening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harvey. I think it's now for Councillor Isaac to sum up if he wishes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could just respond to some of the good points that have been made by council colleagues. Councillor Phillimore, your concern about lease renewal dates having passed. Yes, I can understand why that's a concern to communities affected, and I will look into that and check where there are any delays. Of course, one of the things we're doing in the budget is hiring additional property staff because of the a huge amount of work that's required, and so I hope that will help in the execution of our responsibilities. Councillor McCormack, yes, the council has passed the climate change motion, and it's now a policy. There's an incredible amount of work that now needs to be done in relation to delivering that climate change objective, particularly in relation to the properties that we occupy. I agree that the pace of progress needs to quicken. It's something that Cabinet and the senior officer leadership is very well aware of. As far as tenanted properties are concerned, legally we can't impose decarbonisation on them. We have to work with them, and that's what we're endeavouring to do. Councillor Harvey, I fully understand the point you're making, Councillor Harvey, in relation to community centres. We need to we have a now in front of us, ahead of us, a comprehensive long-term programme of examining our community facilities and seeing where repairs are required, and I'm also hoping that there will be plenty of opportunities to talk to community groups and parish councils who may wish to take on the running and ownership of some of these facilities, and in the process do it better than we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Isaac. Right, we have 3 recommendations to the council. Do you want to show hands of support, or do you want to take it to an electronic vote? Hands, okay, if everybody could show their hands if they support this recommendation to council? It's carried. Yep. So that's carried. And we move on to the next agenda item. Sorry? I'm being advised, I'm sorry I made this error, I should ask whether there is anybody who's against the agenda item. Apologies. I know, but we want to follow the protocols correctly. Thank you. Thank you, Bernie and Julia. Need you to keep me on my toes. Right, number 11, Treasury Management Strategy. This is a report of the Section 151 officer. Members, this is on pages 287 to 320. And we are required to note and approve as per page 287 two aspects. So I'm going to propose that this paper, and the Deputy Mayor, will you second it?
I'll second this, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. So, does anybody wish to speak to this item, or does anybody have any questions that they would like to raise with the Section 151 officer? Okay, Councillor McCormick.
I don't expect an answer to this tonight, but if we could be appraised as members of the possible impact of the situation in the Ukraine on our bond funds, etc., in due course, it would be much appreciated. Thank you.
I can confirm to members that we don't actually have any investments either in Russian activity or Belarus, but we will obviously keep an eye on anything else that comes to our attention, and we'll let members know accordingly.
Thank you very much, Sue. Right, so do we want a show of hands, or does anybody else want to talk on it? Does anybody want to talk? Agreed? Do I have to ask whether people are against as well, Bernie? Okay, apparently I've got to ask, is anybody against the strategy? No, abstain. Yeah, okay, we carry. Right, number 12. This is on pages 321 to 350. And is a report from the Section 151 officer again, and we are required to approve various matters on page 321. I am going to propose this, and I believe that the Deputy Mayor will second this. Are you?
I second this.
Excellent, thank you very much. I understand that the Section 151 officer is happy to take questions again. Any questions? Okay, are we agreed? Excellent. Does anybody want to object? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we move to number 13, which is the amendments to the Constitution. This is a report from the Head of Law and Governance and Monitoring Officer. Members, this is on pages 351 to 356. And we are required on page 351 that the Council note and approve a couple of matters. I shall propose this. Deputy Mayor, will you second this?
I will second this, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Is there anybody that wishes to speak to this item? Yes, I understand that the Legal Services Manager is happy to take questions. Councillor McCormick, if you have a question.
Well, in light of what's been said tonight, paragraph 1.2 on page 352, if we had a constitution that did not expressly make provision for filling a casual leader vacancy, which was a requirement of the Local Government Act 2000, does that mean that our constitution was illegal?
No, I don't think it does. The Constitution is currently being updated. There are a lot of things that need to be looked at, and sometimes you get a glitch, and this is one such glitch.
And thank you very much for that answer. So are we all agreed with the amendments to the Constitution? Agreed? Technically, any objections? None. Thank you. Right, we had 4 motions, and a couple of them have been withdrawn. So I will take it in order. Number 14 has been withdrawn by both the proposer and the seconder. And then we come to number 15, which is making the borough's roads safer for our residents. We start with this motion now. If members could please note that this motion, as agreed by the proposer and the seconder, has had some words amended. So I just would like to highlight that before we move to the proposal. Councillor Dillo is to propose this. You now have 5 minutes to speak to your motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My motion is obviously as the update. Winkerbury residents have told me that they are worried about their children being killed on our roads. A reduction to 20 miles per hour by our schools, Madam Mayor, could make the difference between a hit or a miss. The stopping distance of an average car at 30 miles per hour is 23 metres. That's 6 car lengths, probably about the length of this chamber. The stopping distance at 20 miles per hour is just 12 metres. That's just 3 car lengths. A recent study found that 21% of motorists were over the speed limit passing a school just up the road in Maidenhead. 83,000 drivers passed the school, meaning over 17,000 were over the 30 mile per hour speed limit. And that was in just a 2-week period. Driving over the speed limit, even by the slightest amount, Madam Mayor, can have a serious impact on braking distances. And to make matters worse, children don't always have the best road safety awareness and run out frequently from between parked cars. So if a car is travelling above the speed limit when this happens, it may not be able to stop in time, leading to a tragic accident. So, Madam Mayor, I'm asking for this chamber to vote in favour of this motion, to back Hampshire County Council's review and to call for them to make Basingstoke's roads a priority. Madam Mayor, I'm asking councillors here to choose between a hit or a miss. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dillon. I believe that was Councillor Dillon's maiden speech, so if we could all clap. I have a number of people who've already indicated they wish to speak, but Councillor Gaskell is to second this. Do you wish to second this and speak now, or reserve the right to speak to this motion at a later stage, Councillor Gaskell?
I'd like to speak now, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Part of our goal to help tackle climate change is to promote cleaner ways to travel. The 2 basic clean forms of travel are on foot and on bicycle. Our rural villages have seen a large growth in walkers, runners, cyclists, particularly during the pandemic, and we want to encourage this and continue this. However, I have found that one of the most discussed issues faced by residents in our rural villages is the large growth of cyclists and the issues residents face with traffic speeding through their lanes. Villages across Hampshire, including those in my own ward, Oakley and Candovers, some of which are on the National Cycle Network Route 23, have issues with silent, high-speed traffic, often cyclists, often electric vehicles, and often on single-track lanes without footpaths, combined with blind entrances, high verges and hedges, and large agricultural machinery. In North Waltham, children walking to and from school with no footpath must share the use of the road with speeding traffic, large lorries and tractors. The use of silent, sometimes larger and heavier electrically powered vehicles makes this more an issue. Our rural residents currently have a long drawn out process to gain any sort of traffic calming imposed in their villages. I urge all councillors to get behind this motion and to send out a clear message of support in giving our residents the option to make their streets safer by reducing the speed limits to 20 miles an hour where it is deemed fit by local representatives such as parish councils. I am therefore happy to second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gaskell. Right, Councillor Konecki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support this motion. I think also we need to go further than just reviewing the speed limits. We need to make sure that we put in place the resources to support and enforce any new speed limits that we decide to change. In Brighton Hill, for example, there's a road called Hatchwarren Way, which is very long, very straight. It's a 30-mile-an-hour road because it's in a residential area, but so few people go at it at 30 miles an hour because it's long, because it's straight, and there's no enforcement, there's no speed control measures. So I think it's really important that if we do make any changes to speed limits, that we also ensure that they're enforced and traffic calming measures are put in place to support them. Otherwise, I fear we'll end up just changing the speed limit from 20 to 30, from 30 to 20 rather, and nothing much will change. Drivers won't obey it. Given these challenges, can I also ask for an update for members in 6 months' time to see how we get on with this? It's important. I hope a lot of my fellow councillors will support this motion also. But I think it's important that we don't put this in the slow lane, that it doesn't get kicked into the long grass, and that we actually see what progress we make. And that hopefully adds an incentive to Hampshire County Council and to us to make sure that any changes that we make tonight are followed through. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Konecki. Right, Councillor Carr, please.
Madam Mayor, I rise to congratulate Councillors Dillo and Gaskell on their excellent motion, and I commend them for their broader campaign to improve road safety in this borough. Road safety is a key issue in the rural parts of this borough, but I'm afraid you wouldn't always know it from the attitude of our county council. Across Evangar, residents have serious concerns about the safety of many stretches of rural road, and being led by very capable parish councils, they are frequently bringing forward reasonable, sensible requests for changes, speed limits and mitigations. And yet all too often, our rural communities are met with a bland and unimaginative no. Whether it's the Penwood crossing between East Woody and Highclere, or the Eshenswell Road through Bishop's Green, or the B3048 from St Marybourne to Hurstbourne Priors, the Harroway Crossroads, or the mitigations proposed for Harts Lane in Berkeley. The list goes on. Hampshire doesn't listen. Our rural parishes are frequently met with inflexible computer says no responses from the county council, from officers who sometimes seem unwilling to engage with the day-to-day experiences of our rural residents. And really, in supporting this motion tonight, I am calling on the county to listen. Whether it's accident data, speeding data, the will of my parishes seems to bounce off the county council like water off so much rock. I support this motion tonight because it's important to recognise that our neighbourhoods need to be heard, and there needs to be a step change in attitude, in approach, in mindset from the highways teams at the county council, and a commitment to act on our calls for change. And so, as councillors, we do need to commit to campaign as hard as we can on road safety, because it is only when we are persistent and dogged and determined, as Councillor Dillo and Gaskell have been in their wards, that we will see the change that we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carr. Right, I have Councillor Freeman and then Councillor Mellor. I have loads of other names, by the way. I haven't forgotten everybody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to kind of echo what Councillor Konechka has said. Although I will be supporting the motion, I do think it's important that speed limits are reduced. This isn't going to help the schools because, as Councillor Dillo said, a lot of the accidents are caused because people are speeding above the speed limit outside our schools and on our roads. So I don't think there's much point in reducing speed limits until we're actually enforcing the ones that we currently have. We need to change the mindsets of people and have people realise that speeding is not acceptable. It does kill people, and quite often it is children outside schools. So as well as reducing the speed limits, we do need to be enforcing what we already have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. Councillor Mellor, and I believe this is going to be Councillor Mellor's maiden speech, even though he's a very seasoned local politician.
Well, thank you for those words, Madam Mayor. This is not a local issue that we're participating in with this review. There's United Nations resolutions. There's the Stockholm Declaration, which is collapsing. So we're taking it on with a review in the county. It has to be across the county. You cannot isolate individual villages. It has to be a standard policy somewhere along the line. The terms of reference for this review, and Madam Mayor, I didn't declare an interest. I didn't think it was necessary, but I will be chairing the review, so I have to probably state that, as I understand it anyway. It is a cross-party policy, I gather from today. Everybody is supporting this policy. I doubt whether there will be anybody voting against it. The problems have been going on for years, as various councillors, Konechka and Councillor Carr have mentioned. In that time, from 2012, 2015, 2018, there have been reviews. There have been speed reviews. And I can tell you now that the speed reviews did not justify any reduction in the speed limit from 30 to 20. The speed limits were reviewed not just 30-20, across the board. Now, this review, again, will not involve national speed limits. Somebody earlier on was talking about a 50 mile an hour limit on motorways. This does not come into the review. The review will take about 6 months. We start work next week, and I'd imagine there's the whole review group is task and finish. It's proportional representation. I mentioned the county, seeing as you're mentioning the county at Liberty. And I can tell you now we expect 3 or 4 meetings, possible deputations, full consultation, with a review late in the autumn. Review to be completed late in the autumn. I cannot say too much. I actually mentioned to the proposers that it is something wrong to be running a review with, in the motion, the end result or the outcome being stated. You can't work that way. But it will be a very balanced review, police involvement. The gentleman from the Lib Dem speaker there, he mentioned the problems of enforcement, and that is going to be an issue with outcomes, of course. So all in all, you know, we've got 5,200 roads, miles of road in Hampshire. We've got 299 parish councils as well, all with varying views. It's going to be a bit of a battle to get some real consensus as to what should be done. As I say, everything is going to be, I know people don't like this, everything has got to be evidence-led. We've got speed cameras, we've got various methods of checking everything out, and it will be a speed-led, it will be an evidence-led review. So I'll just close on that, Madam, as I've probably spared my first 4 minutes as my opening speech in this particular chamber. I've made them in others, as you know. So I just wish the review every success,
and hope that people get some satisfaction out of it at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Councillor. And not so maiden. Right, I've got Councillor Harvey, followed by Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, we now know the man we have to lobby. That's a good start. It's good that you're a councillor in this chamber to start in that respect. This isn't a new issue, as members have already raised and already said. It certainly is a new issue for our communities in Norden, to say the least. And I respect the motion, and I understand where the motion is coming from and will be supporting it. But it isn't just specifically related to schools where this issue is important. It is in many residential roads, in many residential areas with their individual circumstances, where 20-mile-an-hour limits would make a huge difference to the safety of those communities. And that's why the review is important. And the review is important because, having engaged with Councillor Hornby last year on this very issue and received communications from him with us championing the thought of 20-mile-an-hour limits in our own communities, his response was less than satisfactory, to say the least. His view of it at the time was that whilst he understood the desire for 20-mile-an-hour speed limits throughout the Oak Ridge estate, which was the particular area we wrote to him about, the county had a current policy. And the county's current policy had a report published, a decision day that he undertook, where there was a review previously of 14 20-mile-an-hour signed only speed limit pilot schemes across Hampshire, where they had viewed that there was no further scheme to be implemented. They would keep the existing schemes, but they weren't going to do any new ones, and that the consideration would be considered to introducing 20-mile-an-hour limits in locations where injury accidents were attributed to speed were identified. Now, the current criteria that he was alluding to is that it takes 5 accidents for somebody to take it a blind bit of notice at county. It actually takes a death to get it up the list. Now, if that is the kind of standard that the county council is setting, it is shocking that it takes that much of a road safety issue to get our county council and highways authority to take notice of these issues. And that is the issue that we face, because communities are seeing accidents happen in front of them outside their front door, and there is nothing that the county council officers are actually doing about it because the policy will not allow them to. Now, they may well advise, shape and form policy that goes to councillors to consider and then decide. I get the process that obviously we go through in this authority. It's the same at county. But where you are faced with a cabinet member who then says to us, well, I know that the committee is going to set up a working group and I'm going to leave it for them to come up with the solution, that is itself somewhat concerning. Now, I respect there's a task and finish group, and I want you to be successful, and I want to see the results come out with 20-mile-an-hour zones, because I know that's exactly what our community want. So I get it that you're going to have to go through the process to get the evidence to prove your case at the end. But I am disturbed, or I was disturbed particularly last year, when a cabinet member at county was saying, I aren't going to take this on myself, I'm going to leave it to the committee's task and finish panel to direct. If you're in power, you have a responsibility to exercise power in the interests of the community and the people you represent. You shouldn't necessarily leave it to a task and finish panel to tell you what's good. You should know that if you're the cabinet member for highways. And so that was pretty concerning back then. We've raised petitions, you've raised petitions. Petitions have been raised across the borough in various forms relating to road safety. This issue cannot be left solely to deal with schools. It must be about broader residential areas. And residents have voiced their concern for safety. It shouldn't just be where those residents shout the loudest. There are communities that won't know the process is going on, but will nonetheless benefit from 20-mile-an-hour zones. This has to be a proactive policy from the county council, as other councils around the country do very successfully. Think of Cambridgeshire, think of Oxfordshire. They roll out these schemes across those counties very successfully, and the county should actually own it, promote it, and get it out there and not rely on people having to put their hand up requesting it. And just a small point about the police to finish on. We can't rely on the police to enforce it. We don't have enough of them to begin with. But the context is it shouldn't just be about enforcement, it should be about changing the culture that goes with that. And we know the evidence stands. Where 20-mile-an-hour exists, you get a culture change on our roads, and that's what we want. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harvey. Now, I've got 4 people on the list, and we don't have a lot of time, so I don't know whether you want to be brief and have like 2 minutes each, or whether you want to talk it. So I'm going to give it to Councillor Jones first, but if you kind of divvy it up between 2 minutes each, then you can each get a chance.
A lot has already been said. Yes, I do agree, and I will be voting for it. I think there must be an election coming up, because this has been raised so many times in this chamber. Southam, for instance, we've asked for road calming there and different things. As a council, we used to do road calming. Perhaps that's something we should be looking at in conjunction with Hampshire, to try and, where we got areas that were quite wide open roads and easy to drive down, easy to brake speeds, we should be looking to reduce speeds by road calming methods. We had a programme a number of years ago, perhaps we should be going back to that. Yes, I'd like the police to be able to police it, but the reality is they're not. So let's just put pressure on our county councillors, because that's what they're there for. No, I don't know how many we've got in this chamber, but there used to be a few, but it'd be nice to know how they're voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones, and that was nice and brief. Councillor Phillimore.
I'll be just as brief, Madam Mayor. Why wouldn't you support this motion? It's common sense. I was in the chamber a few years ago where we had a petition from King's Furlong School, for instance, and that was received. The unfortunate truth is we rely on communities now. We don't rely on our police. We've got community speeding groups. They're an anathema in our village. I mean, I don't know what they're like in other villages. You know, you wouldn't want to be one. But where's the police? We've been, as Councillor Harvey said, we've been subject to policing cuts. We've got speed cameras are out filming. I mean, you've got to be able to enforce this. I mean, and the last thing really is, we've talking parochially about, Andy and Sam have spoken colloquially about their own issues. We are in control of some of our issues. Let's not have planning applications around schools which are ridiculous, like the one in Overton for 24, which is double the neighbourhood plan, which threatens the safety of children.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phillimore. Right, Councillor McCormick and then Councillor Bound.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be as brief as possible. Accidents rates are increasing following several years of decreasing. When I first stood for council, there were 3,500 fatalities a year. Now it's down to about 1,800. That massive reduction was thanks to our Labour government. When I also stood first, I remember presenting a petition for road safety at Shakespeare Road, 655 signatures. The county ignored it. In fact, they had a solution to it. That was to close Chinham Park School because we had 3 serious injury accidents involving children in 5 weeks. So, you know, good luck engaging with the county. They don't always see sense. They don't always do what they do. I agree wholeheartedly with this motion. Road safety has been a passion of mine. I have been a ROSPA advanced driver and driving instructor. The amount of deaths in Basingstoke over the years, one in Winchester Road fatality when I was a boy, one on Popley Way. The county tend to forget about things that happened in the past. If it's more than about 3 years ago, they tend not to count it. Winkelbury Way, yes, that could do with some traffic calming. That could do with speed limits. If you want to have speed limits to reduce emissions, you have to have them all the time. If you want to have speed limit reductions for road safety, especially around schools, they need to be at certain times of day, variable speed limits. Enforcement's relatively easy. You just have cameras and number plate recognition and automatic fines. That won't be popular with some of our residents, but it will do the job. There are also examples I can think of, 2 examples, Vivian Road and St Michael's Road, where we had 20-mile-per-hour limits near schools and churches and things like that, and the county decided to lift them. I don't understand why to this day. And also, picking up on my Brighton Hill colleague, we have an ongoing issue in Sullivan Road with road safety, and I have some petition signatures that I might want to present on that at some point, if I might add to them as a result of going knocking on doors. We do have a road safety group with a county that has representatives from pedestrians, bikers, equestrian, all that sort of thing. I would urge people to follow its activities. And finally, if you do bang on about stuff for long enough, I've been banging on about improvements in Brighton Hill for 20 years, and we now have the roundabout improvements and the cycleway. Be careful what you wish for. You may just get it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McCormick. Right, Councillor Bound, you don't have an enormous amount of time.
I will be very brief. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
1 minute 23 seconds to be precise.
I have an urban 20-mile-an-hour zone with recorded speeds of 57. I have a rural one, which is 30, with speeds of 97 miles per hour. I would like to thank the petitioner the motion proposer. It has meant the district commander of our police force has committed to resource that will enforce when our wonderful volunteers in Speedwatch can provide really useful information to target that enforcement. I just wanted to bring that to the debate. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Right. Councillor Dillo, would you like to sum up?
I'll be brief. Madam Mayor, our role as councillors is to listen to our residents, to support our residents, and to make this borough a better and safer place for everyone to live. Lowering speed limits on our roads will have many different advantages: environmental, economic and climate benefits. 20-mile-per-hour speed limits can reduce CO2 emissions by 26%, nitrous oxide emissions by up to 28%. My Safer Roads in Winklebury campaign has already amassed over 400 petition signatures in just 2.5 weeks, proving that the residents of Winklebury and Manydown and across the borough want safer roads. So, Madam Mayor, I'm calling on members of this chamber to vote in favour of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dillo. Right, I'm kind of sensing some unanimity here. Is everyone in agreement? Excellent, the motion is carried. Do we have any dissenters? Oh, and we've got one abstention. And another, so we've got 2 abstentions, sorry. One Councillor Mellor and one Councillor Howard Sorrell. Right, we move on to the second and last motion of this evening, and it is for the additional support to Basingstoke Citizens Advice. We have a proposer in Councillor Mackay and a seconder in Councillor Bowes. Councillor Mackay, you have 5 minutes to speak to your motion.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and for remembering it's Mackay, not McKay. I appreciate that. So a short speech, knowing that we don't have a lot of time. As Vice Chair of the CEP Committee, I was amongst members who recently received a presentation from the Chief Executive of the Basingstoke Citizens Advice Bureau, and we heard how demand for their services is outstripping the resources. Now, we already recognise through funding provided that the CAB is a vital source of advice for our residents, especially those struggling to make ends meet. In the last year, over 14,000 of our residents, right across the borough, every ward, every age group, received free and confidential advice from CAB staff and volunteers. I know very well from my previous time as a council-appointed trustee at the CAB just how much people value the help they received. They really are an amazing team. Advice from CAB has a direct financial benefit to residents, whether it's in relation to benefit claims, debt management or consumer rights. Now, there are of course many non-financial benefits, but I choose to highlight the financial because we're discussing funding as the cost of living escalates around us. I've got a few numbers in the next little bit of what I'm saying, and goodness knows it won't be improved by the international events of the last week. But inflation currently at 5.5%, weekly food shopping rising by over 5%, cost of renting a home by 8%. The Council's budget forecast that inflation will reach 6.9% in the spring. The Bank of England actually predicts it will go much higher than that as energy bills rise by as much as 50%. You would need to be well over the age of 30, possibly approaching my age, to recall managing your household finances against this sort of backdrop. We can be sure that pensions, benefits and wages will not be rising at these rates. No wonder demand for the CAB's services is outstripping their current resources. Please support this motion. Request the Cabinet to consider how reported underspend on the Councillor's grant scheme could be utilised to provide some additional support to help CAB meet the demand for its services. Let's give additional support to our award-winning CAB team at this difficult time. They're there for all our residents. They need more of our help, just as residents are demanding more of their help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mackay. I'm a little worried there's been a bit of a misunderstanding. I was only referring to being time-bound by the last motion, so I don't want you to feel that your motion is being threatened in terms of timing. It was just... No, okay, that's great. So you absolutely have what you're entitled to, which is 5 minutes plus 5 minutes plus 20. So, Councillor Bowes, I understand you're seconding it. And would you like to speak to it now, or would you like to wrap up?
I'll speak later, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have... apologise. Councillor Woolridge, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mayor, sorry. Basically, I'd very quickly like to say I'd like to support this motion. I've been very privileged this year to be replacing Councillor Mackay on the CAB outside body, and it's been a real privilege to really get and understand the really important work they do there. It's not just complex casework on behalf of the residents. It's you know in addition to that, it's campaigning work, policy work. They pick up on issues and run with it and provide vital data to the central government and really sort of campaign for change. But what I'd like to say, I think it's a shame that council grants haven't been sort of used in the way that we would have all liked them to be. I think it's certainly, speaking to some of our members in our group, it's been due to the complexities of the application process. So I think that might need tweaking a bit. But and the fact that some of them have had conflicts of interest with the groups that wanted support in their wards. But I can't think of a better organisation where the underspend goes to. In addition to the work that they do, I think an important thing to think about is the fact that it's a service that provides a service to all our residents across the borough, and as has been mentioned, at a time of cost of living crisis, it covers issues such as the benefits, housing, where real pressures are going to be, and the utilities, which are and gas, electric bills. They really sort of know how to help reduce the bills for people like that. So I can't think of a better organisation to give the underspend to. So I'd really like to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Woolridge. Right, I've got Councillor Tristan Robinson on the list.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I absolutely support the spirit of this motion. However, I do think it shouldn't just be confined to the CAB. I'll vote for the motion. I completely support it. I think the CAB do some incredibly valuable work in Basingstoke and Deane. In particular, they play a vital role in the social inclusion partnership as part of my portfolio in helping vulnerable people get back on their feet and stopping people becoming vulnerable in the first place. But there are also a range of other organisations in the borough who do incredibly valuable work too. I'm thinking of organisations like the Camrose Centre, Real Change Not Loose Change, run previously, the Winter Nightlight Shelter. I think what we need to do is vote for this motion, and I hope everybody will tonight, and then consider a scheme which looks at the most appropriate support and how that can be tailored with any underspend that's there. I think Councillor Wooldridge has touched on a point. Actually, I think there have been some teething issues with the councillor grants this year. I think that's led to that underspend, and hopefully in future years, bluntly, that won't happen, because I think all of us as champions of our local communities want to see that money spent in our wards. But I think there have been some teething issues, but I think broadly there's agreement that money that's not spent we should be reinvesting in other incredibly worthy causes. But hopefully everyone will be able to spend their grants in the future, and we can work to make sure any underspend goes to incredibly valuable causes in our borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Mellor, and then I have a couple more. I've got Councillor Howard-Sorrell and Councillor Donohoe. And any others at this juncture? Nope. Okay, Councillor Mellor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like, I stuck my hand up before Councillor Robinson spoke, and my words are exactly the same as his. I'm all for distribution of surplus funds going somewhere, but not necessarily Basingstoke CAB. Reasons being, I'm a trustee of Tadley CAB for one thing, and we'd like to see some fair play in distribution of funding, but more to the point, the way that Basingstoke and CAB operate is fantastic. Tadley is fantastic. They are fantastic organisations. They endorse every word Councillor Wildridge said. But I must say, I think it's too tight to focus all the money going into all the surplus funds going into one operation. Why don't the councillors make a donation out of their funds to the CAB if they so wish? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Mellor. Councillor Howard Sorrell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think in times like these, it's good to have a bit of cross-party unity. So I'm fully supporting everything that's just been said by Councillors Mellor and Robinson. As they've said, the CAB is fantastic, but there are plenty of other brilliant organisations within the town that could do with some extra funding. Luckily, the wording of the motion is, I'm sure, carefully crafted to allow that eventuality. So hopefully it'll be a unanimous vote once we get there. But I just wanted to say, yeah, the Labour Party is fully in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Donohoe, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. The CAB is really, really important for a number of reasons. One of them is the massive cuts to legal aid introduced by the Conservative government and the way in which they have butchered legal representation of ordinary people in this country. And the CAB is here to take up the slack, which is why I'm going to stand up here and beg you not to dilute this motion by talking about other institutions and organisations within Basingstoke. I think it's more democratic for us to vote here tonight to say that this money goes to the CAB. I take my fellow councillor's point about Tadley wanting a piece of that money, and I would support that. But I would strongly urge us to vote for the CAB to get all this money, to make sure that we reform the scheme in future so that this does not become necessary, to make sure that we plan well ahead of time and possibly put in place well in advance one or two default organisations that would get the money if we don't get our backsides into gear and sort out the spending of our own money that we've been allocated. So, yeah, and I don't know, I think all you councillors, just like me, you get somebody ringing you up with a problem, and half the time the first thought that pops into your mind is, ring the CAB, or, yeah, I can help you with this, I've got some expertise in this area, but actually, have you rung the CAB? And these people are not overfunded, they're underfunded, they're struggling nationally. So massively behind the motion. When I heard that this had been put forward as an idea for where the money goes this year, totally in support of it. But I would urge us not to dilute this motion, not this year. We can look at other institutions and organisations in future if it becomes necessary, which it shouldn't be. But I would urge that all the money that we vote tonight through this motion goes to the CAB because they really need it in the face of Tory cuts. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Donohoe. It's been brought to my attention, I'm sure the motion proposer and seconder might be dealing with this anyways, that actually the motion specifically says can be utilised to provide support to vital voluntary organisations in the borough, such as the Basingstoke CAB. So just to highlight what you're passing, but anyway, I'll leave it to Councillor Bowes to speak now, and then for Councillor Mackay to wrap up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
It's a little personal for me, this one. Many years ago, in a different place and a different time, my then partner confessed to me that he had fallen behind on payments for a loan for the car he needed to get to work. Generally, he had a bit of a head in the sand approach to finance and had let things get way out of hand. I was already working 3 jobs, so couldn't fit any more in, and so at a loss I called the CAB for advice. They were wonderful. They contacted the previously unhelpful loan company and sorted out manageable repayments, and I will be forever grateful. not just for sorting out the debt issue, but because my former partner did not react well to the sort of stress debt brought and would lash out. This is unfortunately far from rare, and as rising inflation brings more and more financial pressures, we are likely to see not only a rise in repossessions and homelessness, but a corresponding rise in domestic violence and those trapped by coercive debt. We need the vital services of the CAB now more than ever. I acknowledge the Council provided support last year. While I'm hopeful the budget will allow this generosity to continue in future years, these are extraordinary times and extra help is needed now. This is a fantastic opportunity for us to give some of that extra help over and above the Council's contribution to keep these and other CAB lifelines going. Helping out with one problem can have many unforeseen benefits. Not only did it stop the repossession of my ex-partner's car and save a few bruises, but the help I received aided in giving me the confidence to know, contrary to what I was regularly told, that I could cope. There were people out there who would, without judgment or violence, be there when needed, and I got out, began a new life and moved here to Basingstoke. The knock-on effects of hindering or helping can be many and varied. Please vote for this motion. You may never know the full effects of the good you have done, but know it could mean everything to someone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bez. Thank you. Councillor Mackay, would you like to sum up?
Well, I can only begin by thanking Councillor Bowles for sharing a very emotional story that perfectly captures the good that CAB can do. It kind of tells you that money spent and used by the CAB is actually an investment in the community. There's a return that isn't always visible. And thanks to the other colleagues here who have had some direct experience of the CAB and have taken the trouble to say how important they are. The wording of the motion doesn't tie down to just the CAB, but I make no apology for focusing my speech on the CAB because I think the need is now and not a review that may take several months, and other voluntary organisations, I agree, are also very important, but the CAB's need is now. And because I'd made some inquiries in advance of this, the rules of the grant scheme do not allow an individual councillor, unfortunately, to use the small grant that's available to us in that way. Hence tonight's motion. I'm hoping gives the new leader and the new cabinet an opportunity to really get off on the right foot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mackay. Right. Again, I'm sensing unanimity. Is everybody agreed with this motion? Are there any objections? None. Any abstentions? None. Okay. Thank you very much. Right, number 17 was withdrawn by both the proposer and the seconder. So we move to agenda item number 18, which is questions from members of the council on notice, and we have none. Agenda item number 19. There are minutes for 5 meetings listed. Do any members have any questions relating thereto? None? Okay. We have no reason to exclude the press and public as we have no confidential or exempt items for discussion. That, fellow members, concludes the business for this evening. I declare this meeting of the council is over. May I thank you all for being so brilliant yet again and for enabling us to get through this agenda at an excellent speed. Thank you also to all our officers present for being super efficient. May I wish you a safe journey home. Good night and God bless. Just to say, it's Paul's last time as well. It's really sad he's leaving. It's the last time he's going to be carrying the mace. Good luck with your new venture.